President Council instead of Sunday.
Chase, it's true, where they?
Everybody goes fired.
Matt.
Documentation.
Matt?
President Council instead of Sunday.
Chase, it's true, where they?
Don't have to work Saturday after all.
Hi, Randy.
Is he there?
That's where.
Put the bottle down. Someone's watching.
Get out of the back of the van.
Who's that kid back there?
I don't think you can see them, just one way, right?
It's one way.
They just turned their laptop on and went to them.
You went down a lot. Does it say reserved? Make sure that he's got.
This one you had? What? This one you had?
There was one left. I don't know if it was for me or your dad.
Hey, Randy.
That one was for you.
I figured that. I saw it outside the bathroom.
Randy, can you hear me?
I need to go to the bathroom too.
Is it working? Does it say live? Now do you see the little thing? Live.
That chair might be taken when you get back.
Alright, if you're
really
really,
all working 7 days a week. Half the company just got fired.
Oh, I have to go to consolidated.
fired.
You're coming to the
There we go.
field.
We're going all the way
Yes.
back.
Mind the gap.
Better than I say, no one's a
You guys are giving the old man a hard chair just because he's new, doesn't
None of us
mean.
like you, Alex.
Oh, yeah.
No, I mean, like if you put your cursor over the
Doesn't that
screen,
mean they do it?
Amazing, yeah.
it should say, yeah, you should
I
have
thought that was
pause
yours. I
and
don't know if I
volume
can deal
and
with that, man.
live with a red dot.
You're
Is
the
that
elder
correct?
here almost, now, I think.
Okay, then you're 8 seconds behind us. And we're going to be starting in just a minute. But this way you can hear everybody, because the commentary is going to be half of the fun. So
Give that iron chair.
on the right hand side, there's live chat. So over there you can where it says say something. So if something comes up and you want
There's a
to.
chair over there. Or I guess there's one back there.
Hey Steve, Randy says stop
Or there's
laughing
one
so
right
hard,
there.
he can't hear.
It wasn't me.
It is you. I can hear him. It's like back feeding through the webcam. It just keeps getting louder. So where it says say something, if you have something you want to add or something like that, you can either text me or type it in there. So if you type in there, it'll
Are you trying to get
pop
like
up on the
that?
screen.
Sweet.
My next job, you'll be good. So they're on 9 too?
You're in here too?
Yeah.
Come on in.
Yeah, see where there you go. See? Hi Randy.
Anybody else?
And Brian.
Just sign in real quick.
Right? So you hit in there and you can type. So if something comes up and you want to ask a question, remember you're about 10 seconds behind. So type it in there. I'll see it pop up. Like, hey, what about? You keep going back to first aid kit. What about first aid kit? We'll stop talking about it. Or text me on my phone right here. Cool.
You're missing.
I don't know what that means.
We forgot. He's gonna.
No, he's been
He was
reminded
told yesterday
and today.
He's
This morning.
gonna
Man, I
text
forgot.
Scott in a minute.
Yeah, so it says live chat and then down at the bottom.
Man, I'm all the way down
It
here to
says
the
zero.
worst part.
It says
There's
say
There's
something.
no
So
way I'm
just
gonna
type
make
on
it
say
to my
something.
board.
That's what it
Traffic's
says.
bad.
Yeah.
Traffic's real bad, man.
Oh, so you'd have to have an account. So don't worry about it then. Just if you have something you want to talk about.
Yeah, you had to go pick up this little boy, right?
Which one?
He was stealing from it?
Tim?
Why?
We saved you a front row seat.
Huh?
The most count right.
Yes, sir.
There's one for you right there.
Oh, they sent it out?
There's one open.
Sam.
Definitely.
You insist.
There's one nice one left. Come on back and take it.
You made it just in time.
There you go.
Oh. Yeah.
I know who you're talking about. Troy?
We're good now. He's up and running. I think Brian's on.
What am I on?
I texted Brian, but Brian's watching the YouTube video, so I don't think he can do more.
We look real similar.
You have to close it.
Below the waist.
You don't have enough. You don't have enough hair in you.
You ever see that picture of Tim sent?
Yeah.
What the fuck is this?
Thanks for the music,
It's not even a Nova t-shirt.
Not even a Nova t-shirt.
I would get sick.
Or hat.
Nothing.
I thought it was a little pool party.
Is that a pool party?
I thought we were going bowling.
Laser tag. Wait, that's a team thing. That's a team thing. I wanna get us t-shirts made.
Have fun, guys.
Anybody else want a t-shirt?
But like, please.
Yeah. Polly's making a beer run. Is that right?
Scott was in charge of beverages, so. Wherever those are at. Everybody sign in? Got the little sign sheet floating around?
Everybody has not signed in.
Right?
No.
Stop over there.
What's up? Ready? Sure.
Already comes in his shorts.
Yeah.
How y'all feel about that?
Yeah. Not real
Oh,
good
we've
on
been
you
talking
guys in
about it.
work clothes. Oh, boy.
That's brave, boy.
You know,
Especially with Jason.
I like to live on the edge.
Let's go see the new RV parking.
What?
I didn't get it.
You be careful, Jason will take
I know.
He's on a roll.
Ain't even got started yet.
You
go, let's go.
Back in John's.
Now it's 4:20. Yeah.
Where's
now
your brother?
it's
Oh, not your brother. That's Brian's brother.
That's in Nirvana.
4.
Yeah.
You're all the same to
I
me.
think he's working tonight.
Everybody had it.
Pretty good.
Did you say?
That
looks like Frankie Valley. That one looks like a $300 Frankie
Who's Frankie got?
Valley. Seriously? With that hairdo, man, you should just go use yourself in the corner.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Christopher.
He's a baseball player.
There's a mountain.
Yeah.
Fish for the Dodgers back in the
Using up those accommodations.
How much you get for being last?
It sounds
back,
really
so
cool.
you just tear it up.
Garrett? He's coming, he already told me.
Yeah, start with a.
So, alright, on the button.
He's being advised. That's another
Since you guys do everything in real time, I thought I'd show you what a job looks like when you speed it up a little bit.
thing.
This is a little attention gainer, something fun to do.
Wow, they move real fast.
Yeah, that's
Look at our job sites, everybody just buzzing
that's
around.
that's the 85 construction right now because there's a $13 million kicker in it.
That's Compass Group, but it's not the full video. It's only a partial video.
I'd like to say good job painting those holes in the floor. Thank you.
See, Steve, the sun comes up slowly. It doesn't just pop up when you wake up in the morning.
Hey, Max, just because I start at 9.
Every now and then on vacation, he gets up early to watch the sunrise.
Well, I text when I'm in the gym.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good idea, share for that?
Yeah, that's the one I did. Thank you. It's fixing to be a pipe right, come right up in the middle. There's a safety board. You got it. Safety board takes it first over there. Point. There's a pipe. It's compass group at the point.
I got the second half of my laptop.
Oh, you got the other one? Forward it to me.
You gotta download it to your computer.
Okay. They got some sort of weird software where if you like miss the window of opportunity to download it.
Robert Davis.
Yeah, it goes away.
On the wall in there, Brett.
Huh?
Is that Robert Davis?
Those blue stickers on
Sure
there.
didn't look like him.
Yeah.
He has to lean.
Even in fast motion, he was walking slow.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He was sitting on a bucket for forever. What was it? One picture for every 8 minutes? Yeah, a picture every
8 seconds. right?
no.
8 minutes.
8 minutes? Really? Oh,
Hope it shows the blindfold on.
Doesn't.
It didn't get that far. Crap.
You can stand on the top of the Perry like that?
We're gonna discuss that in class, Steve.
Without guardrails?
Once you pass 6 feet.
Yeah, it's that higher than 6 feet?
That is 6 feet.
Nope.
6 foot though?
So is it 6 foot or higher than 6 feet?
Higher than 6 feet.
So it's
Right
gotta
at
be
6
6
foot
foot.
is the threshold. So if you put the safety locks on the very top
They
notch,
squeeze in here.
like once you put the second layer of scaffold on, you have to put the guardrail.
Yes. You do it without.
Okay, so that's the attention getter. Real quick introduction for those of you who don't know everybody else. I'm Eric. Scott's here. He's going to do a little bit of talking later on. Polly had to take off, so I'll talk for her. Then Jason, Tyler, and Josh are going to get up and say their spiel on some of the stuff that they encountered in the field. And then we're going to close it off with a few people from in the office, and Steve and Rick will have an opportunity to speak to us as well. We're going to talk about today is staying compliant. We're going to discuss how we're going to conduct our inspections, the emergency action plan, record keeping, project management, and then a little bit into administration and logistical planning. The reason why we're all here together is to kind of synchronize stuff. If you notice the top of the sign-in sheet, by the way, if you haven't signed it, it says Superintendent Safety Training Synchronization Meeting, sync meeting. So we can all get on the same sheet of music as far as how we're going to operate moving forward. After this program's been around for about a year, we've been able to work out a lot of the kinks. Some of the guys in the room here have some hands-on experience with some emergencies and some mishaps that we've experienced. You share those stories and learn from them. So our learning objectives are, what is a focused inspection and how do we qualify for one? Everyone's been asked that at least once during our inspections. What materials are required and how do we get them? What are the steps I take in an emergency? How do I record required information? What else do I have to make Nova better? What else do I have to do to make Nova better? And how do I prepare my paperwork for the office? The media today, pretty easy. PowerPoint. If you have note-taking gear and you want to take notes, feel free. I have some handouts over here that we'll break into in a minute. The OSHA board and box are in the PowerPoint, so kind of reduce the amount of space required for that. And then we're going to do this informal lecture and then peer talkers. We're going to have the guys get up and talk, and then guided discussion. So this isn't just a bunch of pictures of me talking. If you want to add something, go ahead and throw your 2 cents in. Or if you have questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Or Scott can get in there and answer them as well. Evaluation. How you're going to be evaluated is random inspections via myself and the safety program. And if you are fortunate enough to have an OSHA inspector come out, or unfortunate enough to have an OSHA inspector come out, depending on how you want to look at it, that's the other way you're going to be evaluated. So it's going to be mock inspections, and then inspections that could potentially cost us a lot of headache and money. Safety cease training for today. In the event of an emergency that requires evacuation, we're all going to go to the dumpster. Who's got a cell phone that works? Scott's got one that's there in his hand. Great. Scott, will you call 911 if we need an ambulance, please? Thank you. Awesome. I'll perform first aid. And Brett, please get the EMTs in the event that they arrive. If anyone needs it, the AED, the thing that jumpstarts your heart, is in the break room in the back right corner. Are there any questions on what we're going to cover, how we're going to go over this material, or how you're going to be evaluated moving forward? Gentlemen. Awesome. I love crickets. So inspections. Some of the things that we're going to talk about in this section, and it's going to go fairly quickly. So just bear with me on the first 2 sections. We'll take a quick restroom, water break, whatever. Kick it into the rest, and then keep pressing forward. But a couple of things that we're going to talk about inspections are, what are the types of inspections? Like I mentioned earlier, this is our big one. How do we qualify for a focused inspection, and what is it? What are the required materials for both the OSHA board and the OSHA box, not just for federal regulations, but for company standards? And then what are the required materials for the OSHA box in accordance with the company policy there? I think I might have doubled that one up. But regardless, the 4 types of inspections that we're going to be analyzing, breaking down today, are the complaint, the required, the routine, and the focused inspections. So let's get into a complaint inspection. So a complaint inspection is when an inspection occurs that an individual's informed OSHA of an unsafe act or something happening. Somebody has called the OSHA office and said, hey, there's been an emergency and somebody had to go to the hospital. Typically, if someone goes to the hospital, you can anticipate a OSHA compliance officer an OSHA compliance officer to show up. In the event that they do show up, they're going to be there to inspect the specific event. They're not there to go tromping around the site and really start to dig into toolboxes and all that. They do have the authority to do that, but they're supposed to be there to focus on that one complaint. Now, if they observe something that is grossly negligent, like this doesn't really involve our industry, but let's say that someone is inside of a trench and there are no barricades up, that would be a direct ticketable offense right there. Some other things that we'll dig into could also apply to that. Mostly, if your guys look really jacked up, electricians without hard hats, no guardrails on top of tall scaffolds, they'll write you tickets for those too, even if they're just there for an inspection on a complaint. And then OSHA is not required to investigate the complaints or reports. However, in the likelihood an inspector arrives, it's going to be dependent upon how severe it is. So down there at the bottom of the example would be like if someone dies or loses a finger or gets hurt real bad, OSHA will show up. Someone stubs a toe and someone phones it in, they'll probably just call the company and ask for an explanation. However, like I said, if someone's going to the hospital, guarantee they're going to show up and talk to you.
And 911 calls OSHA
Mm-hmm.
and someone goes to the hospital. That does not count as your legal reporting to OSHA that somebody went to the hospital.
So are you covering what to do in such an event?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like I said,
Basically call Eric and Eric will help you guide through it. But
Yep.
if you call 911, 911 hangs up the phone with you and they call OSHA. That's how it
that they still expect you to report that. But that's my job. So we're going to get into the handling of those procedures here later on in the little brief here. Let's keep pressing forward with different types of inspections. So a required inspection is when an OSHA compliance officer observes one of 4 instances, being if he sees 15 or more hard hats on a construction site. Does that apply to us? Absolutely. Let's say we're on the first floor and there's a whole bunch of windows and we're doing demolition. If the OSHA inspector goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 15 on the first floor on his way into the work or whatever, he has to stop and investigate that job site. If there's scaffold visible, another instance, if you're working in a tall lobby and you have scaffold up and this guy decides to walk through the lobby, he has to stop and inspect that construction site. And anytime that there's an excavation, so if we're in the dirt for any reason that's deeper than 3 feet and he walks by, he has to stop and investigate our site. Routine or random inspections, it's exactly what that sounds like. It's when OSHA goes to work and they pull a permit out of the bag and it just so happens to have Nova Commercial Interior written on the side of it. They're going to show up there and they're going to tell you, hey, I'm here to conduct a routine inspection. Now, when they do either a routine or a required inspection, we want to press for our 4th type of inspection, which is a focused inspection. Can I get a volunteer to read that first note, please? Anybody? Thanks, Josh.
A focused inspection is an inspection that can be requested in the event OSHA has been tasked with a routine or required inspection of your construction
Okay,
site.
so that is exactly what a focused inspection is. If we qualify for a focused inspection, the OSHA compliance officer is really restricted to what he can and cannot fine us for. That doesn't mean he won't point things out, but we are going to only be fined for fall protection, okay? Caught between and struck by, which don't really apply to us a whole lot on this job, and then electrical. Question? Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them here. All right, boys.
Allow?
The funny thing is, I just got straight A's this last semester, so.
Make sure that I proofread it.
Yeah. Thanks, Polly. Okay, so moving a little bit further into our focused inspection. In order to qualify for a focused inspection, we must have 3 components on our job on hand. We have to have the Nova Safety Manual, which is updated annually. If you look down at the bottom, everyone's will expire at the same time. Someone pick up the phone and say, hey, dummy, we need a new one, and I will press out new ones instantly. We need proof that the safety program is being implemented with daily, weekly, and monthly inspections, and that's kind of sort of going to be the meat and potatoes of our conversation. And lastly, a competent person must be on site. So if we have those 3 things, we qualify for a focused inspection.
Define competent person.
Somebody that the company deems responsible with knowledge and authority. Okay, meaning they have knowledge of the construction that is being conducted and the authority to stop work and make an unsafe condition safe again. Right?
So has been educated to a level of not lower than OSHA 10 and is first aid certified. And if they're watching fall protection and scaffold, they need OSHA certified class work in that as well.
Everybody certified?
Then we have a couple that haven't, Robert's, I think, what do you have left, Robert?
I just got the
fall protection, it's been rescheduled for the 24th.
Yeah, next month,
Yeah.
because we were the only two people in the class, so like, we're
Something
joining
like that.
classes together.
Yeah.
So.
All right.
Just about everybody is.
And everybody understands what's required for them?
Yeah. So if you see, the knowledge means that you've been trained, you went to the class.
Do we need a refresher?
So you have the knowledge, and the authority means if someone's not doing it correctly, you have the authority to stop the job.
Again, I'm asking you a question, do we have refreshers for people? Because you learn something, and if you don't use it, you forget about it. So do we have refreshers that we have for everybody? Could everybody in here pass the test?
That's part of this, that's part of the meeting here, so.
Okay, so are you gonna cover that kind of stuff?
In this yeah, absolutely. In this consolidation, like this synchronization meeting, the primary focus is one, to get everyone on the same sheet of music, and then toward the end, or the end of this, we're gonna see who is either deficient in either first aid or competent person classes.
Okay.
But it also, this is what we do to make Nova competent. So,
Well, too, every day you're going out there doing inspections, I'm sure they're learning what to look for on a daily basis.
Correct.
You're training them, this is what you have to be to be a competent person.
You should be.
Correct.
Well, that's what he does every time he goes and does his inspection. He's training these guys how to, this is what you have to look for.
right. And then just to build on that, Joan, it's a trickle down effect. So as you learn, the people on your site have to learn as well and fill out all the safety training stuff, hence the sign-in sheet.
And I'm sure everybody's noticed that it keeps getting easier and easier. The subs just show up, they know to go to the board and sign in. You know, they're becoming familiar with the program, which is really making it easier to manage.
Well, that's gonna help too, if we're all doing it, not just him and you
Well,
don't
and
do it,
and
and you
that's-
don't do it, that's where it gets.
And that's the focus of this, is to make sure that everyone's is consistent. The more consistent we are, the easier it is to maintain, the easier it is to get everybody to do the same thing.
Well, we're expecting you to be consistent. We're not asking you to be consistent. This is what we're expecting out of you guys.
That's right. So, moving on, if there are any questions, I got a couple questions for inspections here. So, Christian, what are the 4 types of inspections that we have? That might help. Go ahead. Read them out loud.
Complaint, require, routine, focus.
That's right. Awesome. Let me get one more person to get this next question. So, what is required to qualify for a focused inspection? Mr. Sutton?
For focused inspection, you have to have your, the safety manual.
Yep.
The, safety program being implemented, and a competent person must be on site.
Awesome. Okay, so that kind of wraps up our inspections talk. We're going to get into how to conduct those in just a bit. Let's move into required materials. So I would like Chase to read this page and then the next page out loud, please.
To all employees, subcontractors, suppliers, and customers, Nova Commercial Interior Inc., hereinafter called Nova, has moral and business obligations to provide a safe work environment for its employees, subcontractors, and to the public. It is therefore the company's policy to abide by the Occupational Safety and Health Standards, or OSHA, and to initiate and maintain appropriate practices that promote safety in the work environment.
That one too.
Okay. All management and supervisory personnel are charged with the responsibility for planning safety into each work task for preventing the occurrence of incidents and or controlling conditions that could lead to occupational injuries or illness. The ultimate success of a safety program depends upon a full cooperation of each individual employee. Management at Nova assumes the responsibility and is prepared to take the necessary actions to see that safety rules and practices are enforced. Our goal is the total elimination of accidents from our operations. Sincerely, J. Richard Fraser, President of Nova Commercial Interiors.
Just something we should have, that we're also required by law to do that. We have no choice. We are required by law, and the fines are outrageously high.
We're going to get into cost of fines too in a little bit. Just for everyone's edification, that page and the page previous is, I believe, the second page of the Nova Safety Manual. Okay, so if you haven't even read the whole thing, the first thing you see is a message from the boss himself right here, and that spells out pretty clearly what our aim is and what our goal is. Moving forward, like I said, this is to make sure that we're doing it uniformly and to standard. So required materials. Nova Safety Program requires 3 major components on each construction site. You guys notice I like to work in threes because adult learning is small, manageable chunks, right? Right here. This is for you, big man. All right, they are the OSHA Safety Board, the OSHA Safety Box, and a spill kit. Everyone's seen those floating around. We're going to break into those in just a minute. Once a job has been turned over, so we're finished, or is not permitted, CFR 1910 will be enforced on a case-by-case basis. So if it's a small job, like, hey, we're going to slap some paint over here, we still have to adhere to the law. We're not going to have room. Maybe room is a constricting factor. Or, say, for example, there's like a fire plan that we have to adhere to. We're going to fall under 1910, but make a phone call to your project manager. He'll discuss it with me, and we'll figure out if you need an M-box or something a little bit bigger. In these special instances, a consolidated M-box will be supplied. So,
before we jump along, 1910 is the general industry rules. That's what they call it. That means every company has to follow these rules. Construction is so specialized, they made a second category. So we have to follow all of 1910 and 1926. 1926 is, construction is the only industry that has its own block of rules. Everything else, hospitals, kitchens, all have little subparts in 1910. Construction has its own full chapter, full 1926 rules and regulations that pertain just to construction. So things like guardrails have to be different heights for construction, egress paths, because we're taking stuff apart and putting it back together, we have our own group of rules. So once we're done construction, it's no longer a construction site, it goes back to general industry rules. That's what 1910 is.
okay. So, the OSHA board, let's talk about it, break it down real fast. The OSHA board is where we've consolidated all the required material that the federal and local laws require our posting things. It also has everything that the company requires us to have to keep ourselves safe and compliant. These are the HAZCOM, the SDS, the Emergency Action Plan, the Fire Plan, the Rally Point Map, the Emergency Evacuation Map. The reason I'm reading all these out loud is because there's a question in like 6 slides that says how many of these are on there. So if you would like to get the answer right, go ahead and count. The Nova Commercial Interior Incorporated sign, caution signs, warning signs, a current inspected fire extinguisher, which is to be conducted monthly, a weekly safety training class material and sign-in sheet, which is conducted weekly, a daily sign-in sheet conducted daily, the Emergency Action Plan, Key Personnel Quick Guide, assigned the sign-in and first aid areas, the Nova Safety Manual, the OSHA required postings and regulations, references sheet, and finally the first aid kit, which is inspected weekly. And remember that everything on that board has to be in English and in Spanish. If you have someone that can't read or understand the material in English or Spanish, they can always phone me and I will get someone to translate it for them. So if you have like a weird class in there that you wanted to develop your own, I'm all about it, but just make sure that everyone can understand. It looks like this. So let's take a quick picture.
Slow down slightly.
What do we got here? Anybody?
Sign, sheets, missing.
Yep, bam, goes right there, right? So this is our safety board, kind of like I talked about in the media part, stuff that we're gonna present to you. Instead of me bringing in an entire board and setup, I just figured I'd throw the picture up there. We could talk about it real quick. Yes, sir.
Are we gonna have to move the fire extinguisher since now it's gotta be mounted at 45, 48?
A specific height?
Yeah.
I will try to develop something to get it to the appropriate height. However, the amount of weight, we'd have to put it in the middle. So essentially I'll make like a bracket to get it at the appropriate height. But it shouldn't interfere with any of the other material. Does that answer your question?
We'll work something out on that. We need to maintain a specific
Elevation off the ground.
So,
All right.
a plan is yet to be developed for that.
And then, when we're talking to the subcontractors and everyone on the job, you know, and I show up and I start asking them questions like, where's the HAZCOM, where's the SDS? They all kind of defer back to this question, where can all the OSHA information be found on a Nova job? The correct answer would be, everybody, on the board, on this thing, right? Awesome. Come on, click over there, you. All right, let's talk about the OSHA box real fast. This again is a consolidation point for all the required OSHA compliance stuff, as well as the Nova company policy. The stuff that's inside of this box are the safety manual, which has to be on site, not in your truck. The OSHA Regulation Handbook, the OSHA Right to Work Act and posters, both in English and Spanish. That's the other spiral binder. That has to be on site, not in your truck. Training and retraining worksheets that we need to be doing and conducting whenever we find something wrong. Weekly safety training classes, our daily sign-in sheets, 5 Nova hard hats, 5 pair of safety glasses, 10 sets of ear protection, some orange spray paint, bleach spray, a roll of paper towels, at least 2 GFCIs, which require a monthly inspection, and all other safety materials specific to your job, and an example would be some fall protection equipment. Alright? The safety box looks a lot like this. That's how they should show up on your job. If things kind of get used up, like the paper towels and the sprays and the paint, we could get you some more of that just as easy as a phone call or an email. I break into how to request all that material the appropriate way in just a little bit, but that's stuff that can be replaced. If someone walks away with your hard hat, not a big deal. Let me know and we'll get a new one. But if this, each job should start up with a box that looks just like this.
This isn't necessarily an OSHA requirement,
This isn't.
this is what Nova
Correct.
wants on theirs.
The things that are in this box are required. We put it all in one.
But 5 hard hats isn't required by OSHA per se, it's
No.
just what we say that we need.
Correct. However, the Nova Safety Manual and the Right to Work Act, those 2 documents on the bottom left in the little pile of stuff there, if we don't have both of those,
That's
Not in
gotta
there?
be on site.
correct.
Can't be in your truck.
No.
Correct.
So the very bottom left one is our Nova Safety Manual.
What
about
the fall protection, you have an example, what do you think?
So I'll hit that in just a second here. Actually, I'll hit that now. So this question is a fall protection example. If you look at the very bottom of this picture, there's a little white circle down there. It's got a D-ring on one end and a configured clip on the other. That is a fall arrest hook, okay? And we'll break into how to inspect those in just a second. But that is a piece of specific fall protection equipment for a job that would be either outside the scope of work of some scaffolding, or if you're on a roof or things like that. That would be a specific piece of safety gear that you might want to throw in your box. Cool. And they're kind of expensive, not super expensive, but the reason I would put it in the box is it's consolidated. If someone needs it, they know where to get it, and I can go to that spot to make sure no one stole the thing. Make sense? Cool. But to get back on the safety manual, the bottom left, what do we have to have on site in order to get a focused inspection?
Safety manual.
All the safety manual, right? That's why that has to be there. The book just to the right of that is all the OSHA federal laws, both in English and in Spanish. If that book's not there, we get a hefty ticket.
And they can't be locked in your game box because these books have to be accessible to everyone on the job site.
Does everybody have the handbook?
Yes.
Is there a contest list where we can have someone check it off when they start the job?
Yeah, we were just looking at the contents, it's just not.
So where are we keeping this?
Like stored or on the job?
On the job, where are we keeping it?
On each job, the superintendent should have them at their table with their equipment. So when you walk into a construction site, you're greeted with the board, so you can see all the safety stuff. On the board, there's a sign that says, all the OSHA required materials are at the contractor's desk over here.
That's working all right for everybody?
Gentlemen?
Yeah.
Awesome.
How do we inspect the GFI?
GFCIs?
How do we inspect them?
So when,
Make sure it trips out.
well,
Plug
Got
it
a
in
test-
and
it's got a
it's
test
got
bar.
a-
We record the inspection?
That's why the blue piece
Yeah,
of
the
tape's
tape
on
on it, you date and initial.
that's covered in detail here as soon as we get to conducting inspections. All right, so, and the third compartmentalized piece of gear that we need are the spill kits, okay? These are not only used in case the sprinkler head breaks, kind of think outside the bun on this one. If you have some sort of dangerous material, like some lacquer or whatever spills on the floor, or not necessarily dangerous, but flammable, you can absorb those materials with that. Some other things to take into consideration: let's say someone gets cut pretty badly, you can also police up blood. Someone is sick, you can police up vomit, and really contain some of those fluids with this kit. That's the beauty of having them on the site. So the required material inside of our spill kits, there's 4 sets of absorbent mats, there are 4 absorbent pillows, 4 absorbent tubes, 1 pair of full eye protection, So if you do see something on the floor that is hazardous to your eyes, you can go ahead and put those on, or have Billy put them on while he cleans it up. The most current material control booklet, which is inside of each spill kit. However, you can access all that information with our SDS plan, which is on the board. At least one sprinkler shutoff clamp, and at a minimum 4 trash bags to put all of the trash that you're using. So once you use all this absorbent material, just into a trash bag and then discard it.
And the kit we have will absorb all fluid. It's not just water. We've got ones that'll soak up gasoline, motor oil, hydraulic fluid, water. If it's liquid, it'll suck it up. Some of them will only absorb water. Some will only absorb oil. This one will absorb any.
Right. There's also a pair of gloves in there, but this is kind of a trick question. How many of you actually open this up? And I know that the answer is all of you, right? Okay. Awesome. Moving along with some of our required stuff. So, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to talk a little bit about the M box that we have set up. Nova Safety Program allows to reduce the footprint on safety materials in rare cases. This isn't something that you just request because, you know, you don't feel like lugging all this stuff around. We have all this stuff out there because the law says it has to be out there. But if we're building a broom closet and don't have room for everything, we'll make some rare special circumstances that will allow us to minimize our footprint. So when you're running an M job, it's the same thing as everything else. It's just consolidated into a smaller container. And it looks like this. I think 2 or 3 of you guys have used one of these before already. You got all your clipboards and everything, all your required posting, and then instead of having just a few things in the box is significantly fuller. I'm not a super big fan of this because you still have to maintain it as if you were maintaining the blocks, the board, and the spill kit. Everything that was in there is now crammed into the box and you have to go fumbling through. However, it is a much smaller package. Okay, so each of us, whether we're a superintendent, a junior superintendent, a new join, an intern, we're all responsible for making sure that the required materials are present on each Nova job. If your job or jobs, so you guys are running more than one, are low on materials, request them by identifying what you need and printing them if you can. Everybody that is in charge of multiple jobs should have a laptop and a printer. There's no reason for you to run out of arrows or exit signs or please excuse our mess signs or any of that trash. So ensure that you can print them and put them out. If by some reason or chance you can't, say you're out of ink, or OSHA board materials, you can email Polly, and I want you to CC me. Polly's email address is on the board, polly.lozier@novacommo.com and eric.fraser@novacommo.com, and we'll get you the material that you need. Remember, if you plan, we can get the materials to you to save you a little bit of time. Check, Raj? Awesome. So, are there any questions on required materials? Okay, let's see here. Mr. Anderson, how many items are on the OSHA board? Hey, good guess. All right. Let me get Alex. Here we go. What 2 items must be on each job inside of the OSHA box? Remember that one? We talked about them in great length.
Yeah, the safety manual and the OSHA rules and regulations.
Awesome, good job. And then the last question here. So, anybody? This one's easy. How about you, Billy?
At least one. That's better than one.
That's not, yeah. It's not wrong. 2 is at least 1.
The barrels that have 2, we have
A standard and a concealed.
Yeah, we have 2 different kinds. One that does concealed heads and one that does standard heads. Remember the one that had the little gun? That's what
For
the
these
second
type of
one.
heads.
This type.
They quit making those.
I know.
Have we found a clamp to clamp off a broken pipe yet?
No, we're working on that though. All right, so we're at a point, gentlemen. I'm going to give you guys the choice.
That's
we can
the
either.
problem. How do you catch it?
How do you hold it on?
Depends on the size of the pipe, too. I mean, we'll have to waterline it, and it'll be as hard as.
Even try to put a cap on a broken half inch water pipe.
All right, here real quick. We just get a group consensus. Quick question. We can either take a quick 5-minute break, or we can push through this next section.
Push through.
Push through. All right, that's what I like to hear. So conducting inspections. This one's going to be a little bit faster. Lots of pictures. So that's good. Be able to maintain everyone's attention. Can you guys please take one and pass them down? This one comes with a handout. Each and every one of you guys take these with you to your jobs and start to educate your subcontractors on these. You can hang them on your OSHA board with a clip. It'd be pretty beneficial. So, in order for us to prove that we're actually using the NOVA safety program, we have to document all of our site inspections. Site inspections are conducted daily, weekly, and monthly. Each job book has a section dedicated to these inspections, and it is extremely important that we're diligent in filling them out. So, every piece of it, so we qualify for a focused inspection. Every piece of equipment and some material that enter each of our job sites has to be inspected for proper use in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions, so the stickers have to be on them. Maintenance and safety. And then NOVA is also responsible for protecting the public. So if we have a job that puts the public in danger, we have to take appropriate steps to protect anybody that might wander into our jobs. And I'll touch on all this in just a second. So there's a standard format for inspecting equipment on each NOVA job. Some of us have pretty decent exposure to it, some of us not so much, but like I said, these packets are really going to dive into how this all operates. Equipment and material that is inspected must be marked appropriately in accordance with the NOVA Commercial Interior Incorporated Inspection Matrix. It's the first sheet on your packet. And with the marking guidelines packet. It's the packet in your hand. Any qualified person, this could be a subcontractor that you have trained on that job and have documented their training, henceforth our training, retraining worksheets, can inspect and mark all of their own equipment prior to beginning work. However, it is our responsibility to ensure that inspections are being conducted. Inspect what you expect. Yeah, it's a big thing in the Marines. Okay? You can't expect anybody to do any of this crap if you're not walking around checking it. Roger? Okay, so everyone look at your first page. This is going to help clear up a lot of the mud that we've had in the past. Some guys will inspect ladders once a day, some guys will inspect ladders once a week, some guys will inspect GFCIs once a month, other guys will do whatever. These are the no baloney, new standard operating procedures moving forward for everybody in the field. If you want to conduct an inspection more frequently than what's on this page, feel free to do so. But this is the minimum standard. So someone find ladders in there. Okay, weekly inspections for ladders, right? That's for documentation. You have to document it on the ladder once a week. If you want the subcontractor to do it daily, a thumbs up. The more inspections you do, the safer it's going to be. That's up to you as an individual. But the requirement is once a week. Tracking? Awesome. So
whether it's them or us, right?
Correct. It's our responsibility to make sure that's being done. But they can inspect it as long as you have trained them. And
you require them to do that?
That's up to the competent person on the job.
Okay. But I mean, you tell an electrician, I expect you to inspect your ladders every week. And I'm gonna come back and inspect to make sure you've inspected, but I'm requiring you to do that. I'm not doing that for you.
Yes, absolutely. We can put that in the contract itself.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying that rule, we don't have to do all this, we just have to make sure it's all done.
Correct.
So, make the electricians and the drywall guys and them make that clear at the beginning.
Right.
I expect you to inspect your stuff.
And if they don't,
Retraining for them.
Then you're gonna give them a violation ticket, or write them and retrain them.
how do you manage that?
Right
We'll
here.
Talk about that?
Right here.
You've got
Josh
violations.
just hit that one on the head. If someone is not following those guidelines, you train them and you document the training. So what that does is it gives us a little bit of insurance, actually a lot of bit of insurance, that we are doing everything that we can do to prevent injury from happening. And that person is waiving all of their rights by signing hey, Josh just taught me to wear my hard hat when dealing with electricity because 29.19.26 CFR 1926 150.00 alpha says anytime I'm at risk of electrical burn, I'm gonna wear my hard hat. Cool? That's why we document it. So if the inspector
Does
decides
it have to be documented to that degree?
no.
It could be summarized that I trained you to wear your hard hat if you're in a.
But that has to be documented because you can say, well, I trained him. And even he says, yeah, he trained me. Prove it.
Yeah, if it's not in writing, it never happens.
Yeah.
Even if both parties
But I
agree.
train him to wear his hard hat,
Right.
While
period,
performing
or
electrical
hard hat
work.
because.
What if you're if you're going to train somebody for wearing the hard hat, you as the competent person better have the damn reference for what you're training them on, right?
And why?
You know, you better know why you're training somebody something.
Where's the reference?
Oh, it's the handbook.
It's
Yeah,
in the
it's in the handbook, which is in the
it's in the safety
in the
manual.
safety box.
All right, so this is nothing super new. We've been doing this for a while. Let's just kind of get into it. So now we're going to start seeing a little bit of illustration here. So our current documenting policy, moving forward here, we're using our blue tape. You have the blue piece of machinery. They have green painter's tape. Makes it a little bit easier to see. You're going to use your Sharpie or your pen to ink that documentation on there whenever you're doing any type of equipment, because pencil just tends to fade out of there for some reason. And then let's see here, inside your job books, I'm telling you right now, inside the job book is a little bit of redundancy and a hell of a lot more protection for us when the OSHA inspector shows up. So make sure that you're not only documenting everything that comes onto your site with the tape, and we'll go through and show you how to do all that. Don't forget to hit it in the job book. So,
That's the daily, weekly, and startup inspection sheet in the job book.
So you write, I did daily inspection on,
We
It's
have-
basically a checklist, like
we have
that
a
check
daily
ladder
inspection
stuff.
checklist, a startup job checklist, and a weekly checklist in the job book.
And a monthly.
In addition,
And a
and a monthly, in addition to all of this. So
All right.
We're doubly covering ourselves.
that's correct. And as I've gone around through each job, each superintendent has been able to illustrate where those sections are in the job book and feel the redundancy of including it in this and chewing up that much time to be necessary. But if someone doesn't know where to find those, link up with me after this discussion, and I'll show you what those pages look like, the daily, weekly, and monthly checkoff sheets. So purpose-built tags. There are tags that, like this one right here on the picture, that are specifically designed for inspections. If you have those on your equipment, that's absolutely fine. It's fantastic. I love it. But if you run out of room or there isn't a tag, the picture on the right illustrates how we're going to do this moving forward. So you put the date and your initials on there. For scaffold, you have to be a card-carrying competent person. Go through the scaffold competent person class. And we're going to get all those names of people who need that class here in just a minute. Coming back over to your question with the PPE, this right here is our fall arrest system. If you have personal protective equipment on your job that acts as the last line of defense for saving someone's life, i.e. fall protection like this hook, a harness, which we'll talk about in just a second, they require a daily inspection a by-shift inspection. So before you start work, give it a tug, give it a look over, document it, it's safe. That stuff right there, if you don't have a daily inspection on it, they're gonna crush your nuts if somebody dies on your
Even
job.
if nobody's gonna be using it that day,
If you're not using it, you don't have to inspect it.
only the day she's
But
gonna be
before
using
you
it.
put that on someone's back, there better be that day's not signature on it.
And we're requiring the guys who come on the jobs to have these items when they get up in a lift.
It depends on the list, and we'll get into that in just a second.
so back on like conducting inspection on scaffold.
Yes.
Do we know what we're inspecting?
Everybody that
What-
has authority in this room to inspect scaffolding has received the competent person scaffold course provided by HB Next. And this also kind of highlights how our standard operating procedure is going to be moving forward for the scaffolds that we get the most exposure
So
with.
when you're doing your mock inspections, are you running through with these guys? Show me how you're inspecting the scaffolding. Are you saw this, you signed off on scaffolding today. Run me through what you inspected.
If their scaffold has a discrepancy, I'll find the person that signed it.
I'm just asking, no, I'm not saying there's I don't know if there's a discrepancy.
Well, if there aren't any discrepancies, there's no reason for me to question how they put it together. But if I'm like, hey, that caster doesn't have a pin in it, all right, Chuck, you put this thing together today and you inspected it, what's the deal? Let me go fill out some paperwork and teach you how to do this right. And then I come back and it's next.
And that's the retraining.
Yes.
Right. And then to Robert's question, something like Eric was saying, like this fall protection harness, if you're not using it and it's locked up in the gang box for 2 weeks, then it doesn't need to be inspected for every shift you're not using it. But something like a ladder or a scaffold, if it's assembled and on the job site, it's considered in use. So just because no one's used the scaffold in 3 weeks, or you've got a scaffold set up and you're using it as a drawing table, That is a scaffold in use on the job site.
Any questions on that?
Does that make sense?
That tidbit of information is not in this slide, but it is equally as important to remember, gentlemen. So-
Basically, it's make yourself easier. If you're not sure, ask Eric. If you're not sure, strike some initials on it.
Inspect it, yeah, make sure
Consider
it's
it,
operational.
if it's there, consider it in use.
That's kind of my question, is we're not just, we're actually inspecting what we're signing up on, that the
Yes.
scaffolding is being inspected correctly.
That is correct.
We're looking at it, not just signing off on it because we need to have a signature on for today's date.
Correct. That's everything. Every time I go out, I'm making sure that these guys are doing the same thing, and I am soundly confident that all the superintendents in this room are doing the same. Like I said, it's trickling down, and as I come down and I'm conducting these inspections, they're doing them the same way. And the trend is continuing throughout the subcontractors as well. So moving on with the different types of equipment here. So, like I said, the fall arrest systems, anything that's your last line of defense for saving your life will be conducted by shift. And for us, this body harness, we're going to put the inspections on the hook in the back, on the clip ring in the back. So that way, when your buddy is clipping you in, they have to perform your final check. Like, that's a reminder. Don't forget to inspect this piece of gear.
And we're responsible for the other contractors that come on the job that might be on these lists, when they have maybe one or two up there that we have to physically see and test it ourselves, or is that the responsibility of the subcontractor?
So back on the lift question, and your question is, do you need them on the list? If it's a vertical lift, there are two different types of lift. If it's a straight up and down vertical lift like a scissor lift or an extending lift, fall protection of this category is not required because it falls under subpart J, I think, ladders, stone fall protection. We'll talk about that in just a second. However, if it's a boom or like a crane, and I have some pictures to depict those, you do have to use fall protection. But those pieces of machinery are so rare in our environment that if it decides to show up on the job, I will come out personally and train everyone, or ensure that someone, the competent person, has received that training to inspect that equipment. So,
But I think his question is he responsible?
yes.
And the answer is, yes, you are. You're the competent guy on
Check every
site.
guy, and I gotta check them each time they go up, or just when they
No,
come down?
Dave,
and move?
Prior to each shift.
Prior to each shift.
So here's a good scenario. This
You're responsible for making sure it's inspected. Now, you're not necessarily responsible for
You-
inspecting it,
Right,
but
you
you
could
have to
make-
make sure it's
you
inspected.
could make
If
the
it's
sub
not,
inspect.
you have to do it.
Correct. So something, this might help clear up that mud. Let's say that there's, that piece of machinery is gonna be out there for 2 weeks. And your subcontractor's been charged with ensuring that all this happens. Well, 3 days into the job, you can go over to all that equipment and see if there are 3 dates written on all that safety equipment. And if there's only one or none, that's when you light up that subcontractor and say, hey, this is supposed to be conducted daily. And you fill out the retraining worksheet, explain why and how we're doing this. Does that answer your question?
Do you have to show him then how to inspect it to make sure he knows how to inspect it? Or do you just have to?
If you're
or
gonna
do you have
require them
just
to
write him up
inspect
a
it, you've gotta
violation
make sure
saying
they
you're
do
not
it.
inspecting
You've got to make sure they're
Yeah.
trained to
Doesn't have
inspect it if you're gonna require them to.
It would basically be, it would fall back to me then, what it would do.
The other thing is, everyone in this room is fall protection, OSHA fall protection certified, except for Robert and Greg, who haven't been yet. They're going next month. So, the chances are, the operator of that harness is not going to be a competent person.
No, that's correct.
So that responsibility will fall on the employer. The employee does not know how to do it, or is not qualified to do it. The employer must do that.
It would be,
Employee and employer are very expressly defined in the OSHA catalog. If Junior's guy is wearing the harness, his employer is Horacio, is Junior. And Duho Drywall is working for Nova. They are an employee. Nova is their employer. We're also the contracting agent. That means that we are responsible for other people's employees. Technically speaking, because they are subcontractors, they are employees of Nova. So, the trickle down is everybody works for Nova when it comes to the OSHA rules. The reason we sent every one of our people to scaffold training and fall protection training is that no matter what, somebody that could legally be a competent person is on site. We're not beholden to somebody else to be responsible, because their negligence will result in our fines.
So if I have some guys show up on some lifts next week to do some sprinkler work, I'll have to have Mr. Eric come out and train them?
Depending on the lift.
It would be 15 feet.
Yeah, the answer is.
But not on the
yeah,
scissor lift.
Yeah, I know
We'll
where
get
you're
to-
going with this. You're not the competent person. The problem is we got now, because he doesn't have fall protection.
Right.
He is not a competent person on that job at Allison Smith's building.
That's
And you've got people out there that is
You probably won't have any
working.
sprinkler guys there next weekend.
So that's a problem we have. That's a good point. That's a good point.
The type of lift that they're going to be using does not require fall protection. It's classified as a scaffold.
So he's got his rails up, he's in good shape.
That's correct. That powered lift that goes up and down vertically, there's one in the warehouse in the back that we can go and take a look at when we break.
Well, I know, I mean, but
That does not require fall protection if you're using it correctly.
However, to operate a scissor lift, you need to be properly trained.
You have to have read the instructions.
You need a license.
No, you don't, not for scissor.
It's like your company's license.
It's an authorization list.
But doesn't the scissor lift need a daily inspection?
It does, and we're gonna get in all that, once we're done with the questions.
No, again, you know,
taking up too much of the man's time.
So when you take fall protection, that's why you're thinking you need a harness in
Draw
every
your smiley
scaffold.
face on it?
That fall protection class will go over when you need to have a harness on and in what situations. That's why we had the fall protection class. It was to make sure that everybody could recognize what environment requires what type of safety. So this is a little bit of a foreign thing for you, but it'll all dovetail together when you take the next class. You're taking scaffold, so you can recognize how a scaffold is supposed to be assembled and how you read the instructions to make sure that it's assembled correctly. The fall protection class will cover what kind of fall arrest system you need to be wearing, when and why, and how it needs to be taken care of. Sure.
I think I'm a little concerned that the comment made was, if we tell the sub to look at this, and then we go 3 days, and we find out he's only signed it 1 day, I mean, we've exposed ourselves.
Right.
And
you should
Well,
know
we're
that
going
the
around,
next
should be
day.
going
actually.
around daily anyways.
that's
I mean,
why
you're
you
supposed
say
to be
that.
checking
I don't
it
think I
throughout
wanna
the day.
sub.
It was probably a bad example when he
Okay.
said go 3 days.
Yeah.
You should know that daily that you don't have an inspection of this.
I
Why?
think that
why
kind
not?
of stuff right there needs to be us, regardless.
Yeah,
Well-
again, we're ultimately responsible to make sure that all the inspections are carried out to the letter of the law. Whether they do it or not, we still are required to make sure it happens. So you have to look at it, you can't let it go for 3 days.
Here's the problem. The OSHA guy. What's the first question the OSHA guy's going to ask?
Who's the competent person?
That's the first thing.
And
the
you
first
say
thing-
no. You're the head of the bus.
Now you're,
You're
now
we're
you're in
now
big-
we're really
now you're
far.
in big trouble.
You have to say yes.
Everybody needs
So-
to know that, when they walk on the job site.
Could be the first
their
question.
First question, who's the competent person?
You
Who's
are.
talking to you? You are.
I am, sir.
Yep.
And it's
Don't,
got to be
don't ever
competent.
say, I don't know, or I'll let me find out. We're in big trouble if you say that.
Now, if you're
Because you've been trained to be the competent person.
Now, if your drywall foreman is taking the OSHA class on scaffold erection,
Which
and
is
you prove it,
unlikely.
which is more than possible, and he can prove it, then he's the scaffold competent person that built that scaffold. However, that person, that company is working for us. We're their employer. So it goes right back up. And
So
what
if they do it wrong, and we let it slide, it's on us.
Correct, and they link the fines together. So the person that it's who caused the infraction, the drywall guys that didn't put the scaffold together and inspect it, they're gonna get fined. They're working for us because we allowed that to happen.
And we're the competent people.
We get fined. We knew we were supposed to be inspecting the scaffolds, and that scaffold was supposed to be inspected weekly or daily. Scaffolds is daily, right? Each shift. It was not inspected each shift. That's gross negligence.
You're fine.
You're gonna talk about fine dollar
You
amounts
fell
in
off the
this thing.
scaffold and died. That's manslaughter, because it was gross negligence.
And you have to be careful here, because they make the case, they're beginning to make the cases, that you are personally responsible for some of this stuff. Be careful. If you're negligent, they're gonna come after you personally as well. Be careful.
That's right. And that's why these packets are important.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
We don't want anybody in that situation. And these guys are ruthless. They
So-
will make an example out of it.
Rock and roll, guys. Like,
Okay.
we got a whole lot to get through,
Yep.
and I love the comments. This is good, and it's driving the safety point home. Not just because, you know, hey, safety, but your balls are on the chopping block. So moving forward here, scaffold is required shift by shift. A certified competent person has to erect and inspect it. And let's move forward with where our inspections are gonna go. So the placement of the inspection is gonna be with the blue tape on the side of the structural support that doesn't get covered up. Everyone see what I'm talking about? See where that's placed? So that way, if you need to change the elevation of the working platform, you can still see our inspection. And that's under the assumption that you don't have a prefabricated tag on it. Some of the guys that show up have those, and that's awesome. Lots of green arrows here. Don't forget to check the casters and the pins. Right, Jason?
That's right.
Alright, we'll get into that in just a minute. So, kind of like the question that was brought up here a minute ago, if you have a scaffold that is maxed out at the tippy top past the 6-foot mark, ensure that the tops are installed and the chain is up. Okay, if the chain's not up, you have to have your fall arrest. The chain is your fall protection. Cool? Something else?
What's the 6-foot mark?
The very top of the scaffold is the
Not
6-foot
the
mark.
platform on which you are standing.
Yes, it is.
The platform.
Yeah,
If you have the platform at the maximum height, that's 6 feet.
correct.
If you add another
That's-
stage
but
on
that-
top.
But that is not.
It's not the top
It's not
here,
the
it's not the top of that, it's the top of
That's
Yeah,
why,
if
that's
you're-
what I want you to clarify.
Okay.
the landing is the.
If your working platform is above 6 feet, and is covered in the fall protection class that everyone is certified in, you must wear fall arrest systems or have guardrails in place.
The working platform, the platform on which they are standing,
Mhm.
right?
Correct.
The platform on which they are standing.
Yep. For
How do we know that the guy who erected that is competent?
when you contract them here, they're
Whoa, stop. When who contracts who?
when you hire a subcontractor,
Okay,
it would be advantageous to ensure that they have been trained in erecting the equipment they're using.
you're talking
it's-
about the office project manager releases juniors to do the drywall. We're asking him if he's got competent people and.
can
The contract is requiring him to have the.
I can guarantee you that's
Well,
a no.
The contract
I
requires.
can assure you that he probably doesn't have competent people. But my question is,
A few of our subs do out there.
I bet, that's what my question is, how does the field know that that person is competent to construct, to erect that scaffold?
They have to have a certified card on them in order
Okay,
to erect.
what if they don't?
That's why
That's why we're performing
Then
inspections.
we can construct, we can erect or help erect, or do we have to erect it?
you're
Inspect it.
You're
Inspect it.
responsible for
Verified
you're responsible
state,
for its construction. So if you have someone put it together before they get on it, inspect it to make sure that all.
So a
the pins are in.
non-competent person can erect it as long as we've inspected before they use it.
Under the supervision of a competent person, yes.
Correct. And the nice thing about the scaffolds, we typically use these Baker scaffolds. If it's not laying on the ground in pieces, it's assembled correctly. Like they're almost completely idiot-proof. You can hardly, it's not gonna fall apart underneath you if it's standing up. They're a very safe scaffold, and this is typically what we encounter.
Some other things to take into consideration with our scaffolds is ensure that your pins are locked and seated all the way in. This thing is not to overlook. And then,
Can you back up one slide, go back there? One more. And Robert was asking about fall protection. So, OSHA doesn't say you have to wear a harness to protect yourself from falling. They have to say you have to protect yourself from being able to fall. So if you want to stand on top of a 12-foot tall scaffold, you have to either wear a harness so you can't fall off and clip it to something strong enough to support your weight and the weight of the fall, or make sure you can't fall off the scaffold. So the railings become the fall protection, and the harness is no longer required. Now the fall protection is still there. You still have fall protection in the form of a fall restraint, not a fall arrestor. So that's how you're maintaining fall protection. Correct. The reason you need the chain is you have a top rail that's up here, 39 inches, minimum height. We've got a mid rail, was that 24 inches? Without that chain there, you are not boxed in all the way around, and that no longer qualifies as your fall protection. That's why you have to have the chain in place.
All right.
Or a fall restraint harness on.
Moving forward, same thing with documenting our smaller scaffolds. What we're gonna do is put them to where they can't get covered up, right? Our inspection ticket right there on the side. Also ensure that you're not covering up any manufactured labels. So if you've got a warning on there, don't tape over it with the inspections. So all machinery requires an operator's license. Essentially, your company has to say you've been trained on how to do this. If you know how to operate the scissor lift, then you have the authority to teach that individual how to do it, how to operate it. Does that make sense, everybody? You can go to a class.
Say that again?
So if you know how to operate the scissor lift,
Okay.
and say like Josh, you know how to work the scissor lift, right? You've read all the instructions on it and you've read the manual. If you find an individual that comes on your job and needs to use it, you explain how the manual works, the operation and the function of that lift, and then you've trained them how to use it. That's the licensing process.
But you have to document that.
Yes, through your training, retraining worksheet. That is their license. And you can go take a no baloney class on how to operate like bigger machinery. It's the same thing. There's just no producing part. Let's see here.
The only equipment you need a license to operate is a forklift. You have to physically go take a class and get the certification card to operate a forklift.
Correct. But we're going to press forward here. Scissor lifts, really common in our construction. For marking it, you want to put all your markings on machinery where you can see it either entering or exiting the vehicle. So that way, there's no reason for someone not to do that inspection. It's not like they forgot about it. They have to look at the inspection ticket every time they do work.
And then notice, in this picture, the chain is not up and the scaffold is parked. In this one, the chain is up and there's nobody in it. A good practice to teach the people on your job site is when you get out, put the chain back up, because it's very easy when you're working to just climb back in and drive
Forget
off
about the
with it
chain.
and forget the chain. If they get in the habit of, when they get out, put the chain back on, you touch the chain when you climb into the lift, and it's people have a much higher success rate of making sure the chain is done back up, because again, when it's sitting down here on the ground, and the chain's not connected, you're fine, it's not 6 feet off the ground. As soon as you start raising it up, you don't have fall protection in place. So a good habit is always do the chain back up when you get out. Same thing on the scaffolds up in the air, always just put the chain back. It makes it easier to remember to put the chain back on. It's a great way to teach the guys that are working on your job sites.
Absolutely right. So, just again, if you got blue machinery, use green tape if you have it. Makes it a little more high vis, easier to remember to conduct your inspections. And then, like we had mentioned 5 or 6 times, scissor lifts fall under the same category as ladders. They are their own fall protection as long as the chainer gate is closed. For operation of those scissor lifts, just read the manual to the people that are operating it and make sure that they know how to use it. Same thing. Make sure that all the operators can see where the inspection tags are, no matter the type of equipment. This is a type of forklift. You'll need to take a class on any of this type of equipment if you're going to use it. And you're going to put your inspections where the operator can see the inspection tag. Forklifts again. If you've got forklifts on your jobs, make sure they have their card-carrying license holder, and that they have that on them. If they're using a forklift and it has a seatbelt manufactured into it, the seatbelt has to be worn. Otherwise, they'll give you a ticket. And then for forklifts, we're going to put all of our markings up in the top left or right, depending on the make manufactured. So that way the operator can see that that piece of machinery has been inspected daily. And again, here's another example of a vertical lift with the inspection tag right next to the operator control, so that way the operator knows that it's been inspected daily. Here are your boom lifts. Same sort of kind of deal, except for this one, fall protection is required. Make sure that you put your tags in the appropriate color for visibility where the operator can see it. All of these are in our handout so far.
Yeah, for Robert, if the lift extends beyond its base, you have to have a harness on. Scissor lift
Goes up and down, it's
Scissor
fine,
lift
goes
just goes,
outside.
scissor lift just goes straight up and down. Some of them have a little platform that'll extend a couple, 3 feet. It's over its base. You do not have to have a harness on it. Even though you've got, back up, you've got a cage all the way around it. In these, because there's no base underneath it, you have to have a harness on it. And the reason for that is it's really easy to get bounced out of the basket. Catapult you. And when you take, if you've had your scaffold class, they show a couple of guys getting flung out of these things. That's why you have to have a harness on, to make sure you land back in the basket.
Also, side note, real quick for everybody, if you're working in a lift of any sort and you don't have fall arrest on it, you have to keep at least 1 foot firmly planted in the basket. Okay, so if you're in a scissor lift and you want to climb out of that basket for some reason, you have to have the fall arrest and the harness on. So say like I want to go from the scissor lift to the roof. Well, I use that as my elevator to get there. If I want to leave that scissor lift, I have to be secured with fall protection. And we can get into a whole another fall protection class about setting up barricades and all that other crap to make that actually like feasible. But the end state is, if you're in a lift, your feet stay on the platform. Don't climb up on the rails, don't do any other weird stuff or lean way over to try and paint something, just move the lift. Does that make sense? Well, at least 1 foot's got to be firmly planted. So moving on with our inspections, we got our handy dandy first aid kits. Inspections on the first aid kit is going to go inside the first aid kit. Requires you to open it and inspect the content. Ladders, here we go. All the labels that are on your ladders. They're getting more and more and more manufactured labels as OSHA's coming out with more and more stuff for them to put on it, right? So ensure that they're all on there. Got ladders that say don't, or warnings that say don't climb on the back, don't stand on the top 2, and then you've got your manufacturer, your weight restrictions, your different languages, as well as all the other stuff that's in there. Also, moving forward, we have to start using the ladders that are weighted, or are rated for the appropriate weight limits. Okay, so if you have someone that weighs 250 pounds carrying a 50-pound light fixture up a ladder that's only rated for 225 pounds, that's a violation, right? Anyone see where I'm going with that?
Yes.
So we're going to start working with the appropriately rated ladders. Question.
Missing labels.
Say again?
Missing labels.
If you're missing a label, everybody in here has received an email with all of the Wormer and a couple of the, what are the other?
Louisville.
There you go, the Louisville stickers on it. All you gotta do is print them out and tape them to the side. They don't have to be a manufactured sticker. The material just needs to be posted on the equipment. So that's something that we've encountered.
Part of the inspection process too.
Correct.
Every time you look at a ladder.
Everybody tracking on that? Awesome. Let's keep pressing forward. Ladders again, place the record on the section ladder that's about eye level. So that way everybody can see it and it's not covering up any manufacturer instructions. Keep pressing forward here on ladders. Right? This is a big one.
Yes.
This is an actual photograph from somewhere. I'm not going to say from where, but one of our jobs. Ensure that all tools and materials are not abandoned on ladders or scaffolds. So abandonment, what is that? It's anytime you leave more than 25 feet or walk more than 25 feet away from your ladder and you don't have a direct line to it. So if you're on the other side of a glass window and you can see it, but you can't get to it, you don't have a direct line to that equipment or work. And this is exactly how this panned out during our inspection. The guy in the orange shirt was asked, hey, is that your ladder with the tools and equipment on it? He said no. Boom, that's a ticketable offense. So even though he was within 20, it's not his ladder.
Because there are tools on top of it and there's no one there.
If you were to move it, it could fall off, hit you in the head.
Oh, yes, but that's not, okay, but that's not.
He's not-
Okay, he,
Right, so, yeah,
If
correct.
he would have been within the 25 feet, and it would have been.
yeah,
That guy was within 25 feet. He was asked, is that your ladder?
Yeah.
And he said, no, it's not. Not my ladder.
so nobody was,
So it was docked. We got hit on it.
Another one there for unattended tools on top of a ladder. The shotguns, the powder actuated tools. This is one that I'm taking an OSHA 30 class right now, every week on Tuesdays. And OSHA's going after powder actuated tools really hot and heavy. And they're using the unattended tool rule to get people fined. So if your electrician has a cart with a shotgun on it and a whole bunch of strip loads sitting in the hallway, and he's inside the conference room shooting up stuff in the ceiling, all of those strip loads are considered unattended. And if he leaves the shotgun on his service cart after he's done working with it, that is an unattended powder actuated tool, and every strip load is a violation.
Every individual.
Yeah.
We're gonna
get into that.
we're gonna
That's
hit-
the scary stuff.
So that's, so he, as long as he's outside the 25 feet,
If he's 25 feet from the tool or out of sight, that's
and
considered.
it's on his cart.
That's considered an unattended powder
So what is
actuated
it,
tool.
What
what
if
is
it's
the
not
electrician
loaded?
supposed to do when his,
If it's not loaded, it
We're-
doesn't matter, but if there's
we're gonna
strip
get
loads
it-
laying in the cart, then those are unattended
He's gotta keep it with him all
strip
the
loads.
time.
So what we need to start policing is when they're done shooting up, the
Put it
guns
away.
go away.
Yep, we're gonna hit on
when
those.
he's what?
When they're done using the tools, when they're done shooting up the straps, the tool must be put away.
Right, we're gonna
You
touch
mean
on.
like put in
we're
the
gonna
case
touch
and on the
that.
bottom of the
Put it
cart,
in
is
the
that
case
put
and
away?
put away.
Eric's gonna talk about
Yeah,
this a little bit later, there's some scary stuff attached to this.
Yeah, have no fear, guys.
So
I got.
what I'm
got
saying
this
is
in
if you're not using your hammer, that's not considered an unattended tool. It's a hand tool that's not being used. But if you have a powder actuated tool that is not being used, they consider that an unattended tool. And they'll fine you for the unused strip loads that are in the tool. Even though it's sitting on your cart at 7 a.m. and you're shooting up MC all over the place, that's an unattended tool. So when they're not using these things, the powder actuated tools, they need to go away.
Some other things to consider. This was another thing that we got hit on. The guy hitting us is actually in the photograph. Real nice guy by the name of Raymond Scott. Says ensure that all tools and equipment are being used in accordance with the manufacturer. So right now, that ladder is being used as a wire dispenser, and it's not a wire dispenser; it's a ladder. So, just something to think about.
Now, they make a ladder that you can do that with, but that is not.
What about?
Yeah, Werner and Louisville make a little loop stamped into the foot rung that's made to hold MC, and that's what it's.
Would that be the same when they put a pipe through their cart and spool off of it?
That's correct. It's being used for an unintended purpose.
So it's a lot of stuff to think.
screwed.
It's a lot of stuff to think
Right.
about. But this is the challenge that's presented, guys. And I'm
Now
giving
that's,
you the
now
material.
that's something
but-
that they probably, if it's a little push cart, your tool cart, and you're pulling wire off of it, you're probably not gonna do anything with that. They're probably gonna say you really shouldn't be doing that. Now, if you're using your ladder as a pull thing, well, someone could climb up that ladder, and then somebody else could come behind you and start pulling on it, knock the ladder over. Now it's a safety issue.
Right.
So when they bust you on, they're out there to do a random inspection, he's probably gonna say, you shouldn't be doing that, make sure you pull that out of there. No problem, sir, you drank that thing out of there, move on, you learned your lesson. But on a ladder, they're gonna whack you because that's a safety thing. The ladder could be toppled onto somebody. The car could be toppled onto somebody, but you have to think of where the safety issues go.
Okay, so GFCIs. Here we go. Got a picture up on the board. Make sure that you guys, when you're conducting your inspections on these, you do your test button, plug it in, ensure that it's operational, hit your test, and then reset it. For all of our cords, we're gonna hit up the mail end down there with a little piece of blue tape, date, and signature.
I mean, just not put the tape on the back of the.
That's what I do, I put the tape on the back of it.
It's just
Yeah, 'cause they get-
easier to write.
Yeah, and they get
You're not fighting
food
with it.
barred
Yeah, to get
when you put them on the
scanned.
cord.
All right, cool. Hey, so check it out.
Yeah, put
Everybody
it
see
on
this guy right here?
the back of the bottom.
On the opposite side of the buttons is where the blue tape's gonna go. That's where the signatures are gonna go for the inspection. Check Raj?
Check it out.
I'll update this for
Is
the,
that
for the
weekly?
next time around. That's a monthly inspection.
Monthly?
But we do it, most people do it almost daily.
I've been doing it daily.
Yeah, so keep it up.
Everything.
Hey, this is a real quick example of stuff that's going on that we've seen out there. This is also on one of our jobs. There's no point in even having a GFCI plugged into there if you're not going to use it, right? Nothing gets plugged into an outlet. Moving forward, without being plugged into a GFCI first.
Even if there's no extension cord being used.
Tracking? Awesome.
Why don't we just require electricians to put up power poles? Go for it, man. Whatever. You're the confident person.
Yeah, but most of them aren't gonna do it unless they got money in there.
So,
Mayberry just came out there and brought like 15 of them damn things. I said, hook them all up.
Yeah, but if it's a small job, they'll tell you they won't do it. I don't know.
If we hire real electricians,
if you have an electrician pre-fabricate a GFCI,
if we
ensure
would
that's
hire
inspected
real
monthly.
electricians, we have no problem with that.
Cool, check it out. What's this guy? Anybody tell me what that thing is? What's in it?
GFCI.
Filter.
Built in.
Built-in GFCI. If you don't inspect that once a month, guess what? Get a fine. Same thing. I'm a big fan of putting the blue tape on there. toward the male end, so that way you have to check to make sure the ground is there. You want to see the reason behind putting the blue tape toward the male end?
Yes.
It does a couple of things.
If the ground's not on that, when that pin's gone,
You cut it, you cut the cord and don't let them use it.
well, everybody understand that? That pin has to be there.
Unplug it first.
And,
Have them cut it.
and if you're gonna cut a cord, cut the male end off. If the female end's all frayed and you're gonna cut the female end off of a cord, great. But don't leave it to where some idiot can plug the damn cord in with an open end on the other end. Right? Everyone understanding what I'm saying there?
Yep.
You don't wanna make
Yes,
an electrocution hazard.
Alrighty, so.
Cut one end, cut the other.
Yep.
That means you ran
If you're gonna cut the female end off of an extension cord, you wanna make sure that nobody can plug that cord in the wall.
Moving forward, fire extinguishers, all the fire extinguishers that we're gonna get are gonna have prefabricated certificates on them. They also act as the inspection tag. So if you flip it over, there's 12 little boxes on the back. How many months we have here?
Well.
Awesome. One box for
11.
each month. Monthly inspections.
And the strip of tape is easy too. The tape thing on the fire extinguisher works as well.
Right? Absolutely. So temporary lighting. Let's get into temp lights real quick. If you have a temporary light, we can look down at the matrix. Tell me when that has to be inspected.
Monthly.
Monthly. Awesome. Everyone take a look at this setup. We've got our cord, we've got our 2 lamps, and then we have our cages on the front, right? If you have a prefabricated stand, that's awesome. You still need to ensure that a bulb or a plug is in place and that the bulbs are protected with the cage. This one is a little bit more common out in the field, right? So we have a prefabricated hook on the cord or on the mount, and that's the only thing that you can secure to a suspended area. You can't use any other methodology behind suspending that in the air. It has to be in accordance with the manufacturer's instructions. Something else to take into consideration is, again, that has a bulb and a cage. If it doesn't have both of those, that's an individual fine per. So this, for example, incorrect. It doesn't have a bulb or a plug in it, so there's 1, and then it doesn't have a cage around it. There's 2. Looking at 2 violations for just one bulb.
And that's not for the whole stringer, that's for every
Per
instance
bulb.
of that.
Per socket. So let's take a look at this. This is another job that we were doing. Some temp lighting up there. You can see down there at the bottom of the arrow you have 1 cable holding up the light by the manufactured hook, which is great. Then the rest of it kind of goes around the ceiling grid, which is a violation. And there's another wire where the pen is. You guys see the pen pointing at that ceiling wire? Holding up the, suspending the cord. So where the cord is suspended is a violation, where the cord is touching the grid is a violation.
You also don't have a cage on the bulb.
That is correct.
If you're gonna suspend the cord, it has to be suspended by a non-conductive material.
I know. I've seen them all.
All right.
That's being held up by metal. Metal is conductive. If it shorts, it's gonna short into the ceiling system, which will electrocute people in another room just working in another room. So if you're gonna suspend with the cable, it has to be hung by something that is non-conductive.
Does it have to be connected at each, wherever there's a hole or a support? Is that gotta be, you go every other one?
However, if you can get it tight enough to where it suspends itself with just those 2, like a separation, there might be one in the middle, that's up to you as the competent person. There's nothing that says that it has to be each one.
The sufficient means of support is what it calls.
Check, Raj? Okay, let's keep.
But they're usually 10 feet apart, so that's 20 feet unsupported.
Let's keep. We're gonna keep pressing forward, and then again, we're gonna document those toward the tag. And the reason I like to say again, the reason I like doing these toward the end of the outlet is so when you have 8 extension cords plugged into one, area, you can see that they have been either inspected or not, instead of have to walk 800 feet of cable to looking for the inspection tags. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of sort of why I like to keep them all together and one side consolidated. Again, looking at our extension cords. So when inspecting extension cords, ensure that there's no abrasions, there are no cuts, there's no on the outer protection, and that it's in good working order. Also, ensure that it's at least a 12 gauge cord or greater. We got another side note that needs to be added in here real quick.
Alright, so this extension cord, can anyone see how it's all twisty and wavy on the side here? You
Looks
can
like
see
that.
it really good in here. See the waves in that? That is something that OSHA is gonna start fining people for. They consider that an abrased cord, a damaged extension cord. That is from people
Twisting it around.
twisting it up, so you guys can see me too, twisting the cord around your arm like this. So inside the extension cord, there are 3 wires that all run straight from one end to the other. When you crank the cord around your hand, you twist the wires inside the jacket, and that is damaging the extension cord. And this is a clear telltale that the cord is damaged, and because it's twisted, it will not take the same amount of amps. And they're going to start considering this a damaged cord. Cords need to be rolled up in a nice big loose loop or cranked onto a reel. When you buy a new extension cord, get a crank up reel. They're like $7 at Home Depot. When you throw out a cord, get a new one, reuse the old one, and teach our subcontractors that taking care of these extension cords is going to become extremely important, especially the 12 gauge, because that's not an OSHA rule, that's an electrical code rule. We're wiring the building with 12 gauge wire and then plugging in a tool with 14 gauge wire. So you could set the cord on fire before the breaker tripped because the wire is smaller gauge than the supply power. That's where the 12 gauge cord from one end to the other rule is coming into effect. So OSHA says you have to follow all electrical codes. The electrical code says from source to use, you have to maintain the same gauge wire. So an extension cord that's not 12 gauge is not 12.
Alright, thanks sir. Gotta press forward here. I'm gonna try and get through the rest of these as quickly and as thoroughly as we can, so bear with me for just a couple more slides, fellas. So same thing, what do we got here? Got an extension cord or a piece of equipment that is coming unplugged here, coming unfrayed. Take a look at that. You can have those replaced by a not a competent, but a qualified electrician.
No,
Or a qualified person, excuse me,
Qualified
not an electrician. They changed that one. They actually dumbed it down a little bit. So if you see this, again, ensure it's unplugged, snip it, and then give it back to the person so they can either repair it or just go get a new cord. But that is not an acceptable extension cord for our jobs.
And that is a replacement end.
So you could
So
just
when that
reinstall
happens, just redo it.
Yep.
Cut it off, trim it back, redo it. The gauge that you have to cut back, how much you cut back, is printed on the plug. You know, you just put it up there, oh, about this much, cut it off, you're back in business. They allow that. They allow that.
Alrighty,
A qualified person, if you can read the instructions on the package, well then you're qualified.
Let's go ahead and get into some of the stuff that we're going to see on our jobs as well. Some core holes, right? Some cores, holes in the ground. All the holes have to be covered and then labeled hole in either orange or red. And then they have to be covered with a platform that can sustain at least twice the weight of the heaviest load on the site. So, if you have a scissor lift or a forklift that's going to pick up a 2,500 pound pallet and you've got a 16-inch hole in the ground, and then you just kind of throw a piece of, 1/4-inch plywood over there, is that going to be able to support that front left wheel? Now that's a question that you're going to have to be able to answer as a competent person. However, there are other ways around ensuring that that doesn't happen. We're gonna bust that in just a minute. Let's go ahead and define a hole. Anybody? Jason, what's a hole?
2 inches or larger.
Anything that goes through the floor that is 2 inches in diameter or bigger. So, ensure all temporary covers are labeled and secured. This is supposed to be orange. It looks kind of greenish up here in the PowerPoint, but that is orange. It says hole, no load, right? So by labeling that no load, that doesn't negate that it can't sustain twice the load, right? So even if there is a forklift on there, that still has to be able to hold that amount of pressure. They're just saying, don't do that. Cool? It kind of sort of gets into getting around it. If you have a hole in the floor, label it with cones. However, you got to get that heavy machinery around it. Does that make sense? That's kind of driving that point home. As far as machinery and stuff goes, you're gonna have to get some pretty heavy duty stuff if you got heavy duty equipment on your jobs. Kind of rare, but something to think about. Some food for thought with holes. Kind of going into here as well. So what's going on here?
Green paint.
That's right. Wrong
We have orange paint in our bin.
Alrighty, and then let's kind of go into protecting the public, right? So this is also rare, but some things to take into consideration whenever the public is at risk. So use barricades to reroute the public from dangerous situations. If it's available, use like a hard structure. You know, you can make some sawhorses and hit it with that orange paint, so that way people know, hey, don't go over here. Include signage that says construction, please go around, excuse our mess. If you have machinery on site that could damage or hurt somebody, that's when you start getting into those other two parts of the focused inspection, which are caught between and struck by. So you really have to have your A game on as far as protecting the public. Anytime we put the public at risk and the OSHA man comes down, he's going to bring the hammer with him, right? If they see that you're screwing around with the public safety, they will slap you pretty hard on the PP. So, caution tape, cones, signage, they all work effectively. However, they work a lot better when you put them all together.
This tape here,
Vacation tape?
caution tape,
Vacation tape?
vacation tape.
Yep.
Caution
I got
tape,
you.
yellow tape
Vacation.
and red tape
When
mean
blasting.
two different things to OSHA. Yellow tape means take a look around and come on in. Red tape means do not enter. If you have yellow tape up and you're trying to keep people from accessing something that does not qualify as restricted access in the legal term of the word. Yellow, it works like traffic lights. Yellow means pause and keep going, or hammer down. Red means stop, do not enter. So make sure you understand the difference. If we have something that people cannot get into, there is a true danger there, and people must stay out, then you need to make sure that we get ourselves a roll of red tape. Call Eric. Home Depot also sells red as well. We just don't sell as much of it. So understand the two differences in the colors. It works just like a traffic light.
And then just to drive the point home, if you want to close something up, make it visible. Use as many barricades or whatever you got to try and close an area off. It's pretty clear that someone was probably murdered down that alley, and they don't want you going down.
But it's yellow.
Oh, yellow.
I could go in there.
It means I can go look.
Just means pause and then hammer down.
Well, you got, the ATM if you're gonna get some money. Okay, so here we go. Let's get into shot strips a little bit. Shot strips must be stored in a container that is equal or greater than the manufactured quality of the box storage box. Put box in there too many times. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway, an ammo can, or can anyone guess here real quick how much this would cost?
500,000.
How is it being stored?
500,000.
Hang on, we'll get to that.
Is it used?
400,000.
If you found,
It's over 400.
if I
She's
found
got
those, if I
40
found those on the
shots,
ground,
12,
we'll come back to it. If I found those on the ground on your job, I want someone to tell me how much it would cost. But
Half a million.
as,
$5 million.
as Scott was saying
40 times
earlier,
12,600.
there you go. Focus, fellas. Almost, we're getting through it. We're gonna plow through this little
We
section.
were close. We were close.
Yeah, right. It's. I'm gonna give you a hint. The answer is in.
These are all on job sites.
This is important. This is
These
stuff I found
photos-
on your
These
site.
photos are off of our job sites. These aren't stock photos we took off the internet. So not only are we talking about all these live rounds, hundreds of live unshot rounds not being stored properly, abandoned tool, abandoned tool, abandoned tool, abandoned tool, abandoned tool. So not only are you gonna get hit for the unused shots that are not protected and stored properly, every one of the shots in the gun is gonna cost $12,600 for being improperly stored, and $12,600 for every one that's in the gun in the abandoned tool, and the abandoned tool's gonna cost $12,600. And because people know they're not supposed to do that,
You hit it with negligence
you
on
get
each
hit
account.
with, it was negligent on your part.
Each count and
Out of control, out of control.
each
So
one of
that-
those.
That'll put electricians out of business overnight.
So like the picture on the right, it looks like he's got it stored in the case.
And
How do
we're
you
on-
keep
and we're
from
on
it?
the same
Yeah,
ship.
that's my question. Is that not stored because it's not locked?
Yes, not.
It's not shut?
Yeah, the OSHA, yeah, correct. No, that shot strip, that individual strip in that case
What?
on the far right,
Yeah.
is not stored in its own container.
This,
Oh.
Okay,
Well,
so that's not
the
abandoned
problem
tool,
with-
that's just a shot strip violation.
okay, this, correct,
Correct.
this box, the gun is unloaded, there's no strips in the gun. But this box is not meant to carry these. When you buy this gun and open it up, it does not have a package of strip loads in it. This is not intended to carry strip loads. You can put nails in it, but you cannot put these strip loads in it.
So that's only for the strip load, not for an
Correct.
abandoned tool.
But the abandoned tool, to not
got the
be,
shots in it.
not to hit violation of that tool has to be
Unloaded.
closed and locked in a box.
Unloaded.
Just
Unloaded.
Unloaded. If the tool's just sitting in the box like this, it is not a threat. It's not an abandoned.
Oh, so it can be out.
Yeah.
It just
cannot
can't be
be
loaded.
loaded.
Well, that's what I asked earlier, and you said if it's sitting out, it was.
Yeah,
still
I thought it was
abandoned.
sitting out too.
Sitting
Oh,
out loaded.
so that's the big, correct. So if electrician is working on his cart, he can unload it,
Yeah, all you gotta do is pull the strip out,
put
and you're
his,
good.
put the
And store it
shots in a proper box,
Correct.
and then he can leave that alone.
Correct. If you're working on the cart and they leave it on the cart and go get more hay
Loaded.
or go get more, right, loaded.
Loaded.
It is an abandoned.
I'm not sure, it looks like there's.
But if it's not loaded and they got him contained correctly, it's okay.
That's correct.
Alright, here we go, focus guys, listen up, listen
And
up.
it's not hard to do because these things come in a cardboard box.
Seriously, right? Yeah. Alright guys, check it out. So each one of these toolboxes here does not have restricted access on a construction site. The OSHA compliance officer can sit there and have you open each and every one of those. If it is locked and you don't have the key, they will order you to open it, or they'll have you cut it open. If they want to get into something, they have every right to do it.
Even though it's locked.
Absolutely.
No kidding.
They can. If
So in a game box, it's locked.
Yep.
That's not secured?
It can be secured, but if they want to get in to inspect it, they have the right to cut that gang box open, peel it open like a tuna can. If they have to. If
Do
you
they have
lost
the tools
key,
to do that?
If you lost it, they can bring in a locksmith or
inspect.
And that's if shots are in there, or.
whatever, I don't know, maybe.
So if they, if he opened it up and they found loose shots, that's a violation.
Hey, Joel.
Okay. So let's take a look at this here real quick. Did anyone get the same answer? Did we get the same answer? Each and every one of those shots, as mentioned earlier, is an individual violation. $12,600
For each one.
Each one.
if you're negligent. If you are deemed negligent, each individual shot, all those arrows up there, just turned into $80,000
Each one.
each shot. If you're found negligent.
Meaning,
Instead of one little 22 capsule being 12,600, one little 22 capsule equals $80,000. It adds up fast, guys, and that's if you're found negligent.
Each shot.
That's 800 grand per strip.
Yeah.
Times 4. That's $3.2 million.
How would they define on something like that negligent?
You knew better. You've been trained. That's right.
That's what we're doing right now. So
Yeah, but you're gonna have to train them.
How often do you find, how often do you find shots on the ground? Every day?
Yeah.
Yeah, every day.
That's gotta be an everyday
That's a daily.
It used to be a daily, but
Here's
Probably the
how
past 6 months.
it's getting
Hardly
better.
everybody's putting them away. when
It's
they're
getting
not.
better because the,
Yeah.
Well, because of
Because
our,
we implemented
we're,
this, yes.
because we're doing.
it's trickling down and it's training. As we're getting the information, myself and the subcontract, or excuse me, not the subs, the superintendents, we're teaching the subcontractors that are on site, and we're documenting the training. And as that training happens and occurs, it's becoming less and less of an issue. Moving forward, some things to take into consideration for storing these things. The box on the left is a little Tupperware container that you can seal. Not a bad idea. The empty water bottle routine, hey, that's a great idea too. And then you got some ammo cans for.
Really? So
Absolutely.
that water bottle's, that's fair game, that's okay?
They come in a cardboard box.
Yeah, they come in a little cardboard box about this big. That's considered their container. If they're in that, you're good.
Yeah,
And-
so anything bad or better.
And
That's better
So
than a
that's-
cardboard box.
That's better than a.
Yep.
and we're not talking, it's not just the full strips. This is a strip load with 4 live shots still on it. So that one's got 4,
Yeah, or they might have just one that misfired on them, so they throw it on the ground.
still considered live.
Yep.
Yep.
And if you find that, what do?
You raise hell.
No, you stop.
retraining for.
You stop the work.
Pick it up.
You make the scene safe. So you go pick it up. You tell that guy to stop. You take him to your table, and you fill out some training, retraining paperwork, and educate them on the proper way to do it. That's all there is to it.
Can you tell them what to find them?
Well, then also, just make sure everybody's aware of the box that the shots are coming in. If that box is sitting out and it's opened, everything in that box is considered flammable. So it's not like you may be all contained in, but if it's, the lid's popped open on it, everything in there is flammable. So it's not, I was just making sure everything's in it.
They
make
need to
sure
come out with
everything's-
So
something
what do you
else.
gotta do? You gotta take one strip at a time and close the box?
Yep.
Yeah.
Or you can carry,
You can carry
20 of them around with you.
Yeah, you put it in your pocket.
But I've gotten where the drywall screws come in the plastic containers and, with the red lid on top, and it pops open, and it's easy to put it in, and it lasts the whole project.
The lid is part of the container.
Awesome. Let's keep pressing forward with conducting our inspections. This one right here is from another one of our jobs. We have loose wires that are exposed. You have exposed wires. That's 1, 2, 3, 4 violations. And then lastly, one of my favorites is housekeeping.
Even though that's not live.
I was gonna say, I was questioning that. So you're
A lot of
roughing
them's a
in,
bond tail, come on.
So again,
so you're roughing in,
Yeah, I like that point.
It may not be tied in or anything.
Doesn't have to be tied in.
So as soon as he feeds MC down into a box in the wall and folds it back in, it's gotta be wire netted, it can't be just,
if those wires are stripped
If
and
it's in the
exposed,
box, no. It's exposed like this, sticking out, the end of the
Okay.
wire.
so if it's folded back in the box. you're
Correct, and not just the hot, all conductors, ground included.
fine. What about a bond tail?
Bond tails, if it's tied into, a bond tail is tied into the box.
what's a bond tail?
It's a little jumper that you go from the ground on the device to the box. So you're bonded to the
Oh,
box.
yeah, yeah.
Because in commercial, we're using the jacketing of the wiring as a ground.
Are you gonna address the hard hat issue with duplex receptacles as one small example of what hard hats are for?
I wasn't in this presentation.
You should bring that up, because that's something I did not know, but it's very, very important.
Okay, so real quick, again,
Hard hat
29
issue.
CFR 1926, because we're talking about electrical stuff.
Right.
Anytime that you are at risk of electrical burn, you have to wear a hard hat. It's one of,
So, give me a really stupid example.
if you're screwing the faceplate onto a outlet over there,
Finished, everything's painted, carpet and everything, you're gonna run face painting.
and are you at risk of electrical shock? The answer is yes.
Well, hold on, so even if the device is
In the
all
wall.
in the wall, you
Everything
just put the
done.
plate on,
Yep, you have to have a hard hat on.
you could be.
What if the breaker's off too?
You can't guarantee that. There's a possibility that the breaker could be turned back on.
Lockout
without your
tag.
knowledge.
Did you have proper lockout
I did
tagout
not
on
know
it?
that, so he told me that.
Now you're gonna get
What's
into
the fine?
Now you're gonna get into an
12,600.
argument of the OSHA guy. It's still within,
Unless
it's still
you're an
within the
electrician.
ability of
it's
somebody to
80.
remove the lockout
That's how
tag.
much?
80.
Did you hear what he just said?
80,000?
If
The
you're,
fine for that, if we're doing it and you don't have that on, the fine is,
if we're doing it, it's 12,600.
and if the electrician is doing
If
it,
you're a certified electrician, it's $80,000.
You're
you're a hard hat.
What the fuck does a hard hat have to do with getting electrocuted?
Not a damn
It's gonna
thing.
save
That's
your
what
We
you
need
life.
chin straps though, because if they get zapped, it's gonna fly off anyways.
Yeah.
I mean, we need chin straps to stay on there.
I think we need mouth
Yeah,
guards.
I-
protection.
Can we get mouth guards too?
There we go, there we go.
Yeah, mouth
Anyway,
guards
I
spreading
did,
the safety.
I digressed from your program, but I thought everybody needs to know that. I was very surprised to learn that.
It's some serious business. So, real quick, let's talk about this instance right here. Housekeeping looks awesome in this picture. There's no dust on the floor, all the little particles are picked up, but we got hit with this because of that instance right there. We had some round conduit, I think it was,
Yes.
on the ground, pressed up against the corner, and we had a finisher on stilts. What do? We, yeah, and there you go, that too, don't forget the, thank you, Joel. This is, yeah, right here. This was part of our housekeeping though, they hit us for housekeeping in this, because the risk, right now, is that guy on the stilts could step on the conduit and slip out from underneath him.
And note, for the, anybody who's on the stilts, there cannot be nothing on the floor where he's working. Any room that he comes in has to be spotless. If there's something on the floor, it's finable. There was nothing in that room except for that conduit pushed to the wall there,
Alright, so
and we got nailed for
question.
that.
We got floor cores in a big conference room, got them covered, got a finisher and stilts, nothing else. Is that a tripping hazard?
If you got a piece of wood in there like that, that's a tripping hazard.
You have to barricade around that tripping, you have to barricade.
What is our company policy as it relates to stilts for hard hats?
We're not allowed on.
Isn't that a Scott question?
Nobody in this company uses stilts.
They're relieving duty before you hit the
Not
ground.
unless you're at the circus, there's no fun.
We don't wanna wear them.
No, I think it's dangerous.
We don't.
Except when we wanna race in the back.
You stay off stilts. You stay off stilts.
Remember when we were racing with the stealth that one day?
But you had your hard hat on, right? Are there any questions over conducting inspections so far?
They were wearing fall protection.
Alright, hey, what material, what's the material that we use to label equipment?
Tape.
Alright, here we go. We got the
What about beige tape?
or green tape. As long as it's contrasting the material that you're labeling. Blue is just super easy to find. So, what's the maximum distance between fire extinguishers? Anybody remember this one?
75 foot of travel.
Boom, 75.
Or 3,000 square feet.
Yeah, I love it. You guys are super smart today. True or false? Temporary lighting does not indicate.
False.
Alright, here we go. Like one little.
No.
What is ours?
When you're at home.
Alright. Just no. This one's tricky. Oh.
But that doesn't apply to us.
Spell, yeah, hey guys, check it out. Fucking, I can't spell. Thank you for
Because he said it aloud.
In case you hadn't noticed, I don't spell for shit.
No, you spelt it right. You just used the wrong
Spelt it?
aloud.
You spelt it right.
I can say it correctly.
You spelt it okay though.
I can say it.
I'll make the construction.
Alright. And how does Nova take your illusion? Anybody?
Proper containment.
Alright, cool. So, real quick.
So when is a hard hat allowed to be worked backwards?
Never.
Only when conducting steel erection
erection.
and a face mask.
With a face on.
Welders,
No shit.
No
steel
shit.
erectors, that kind of thing.
That's it. So, if you go on the job and some cat's got his helmet on backwards, are you conducting steel erection right now? The answer is no. Turn that shit back around. And then fill out the paperwork. Say, hey man, I just trained you on how not to be a lead. You fill it out. Okay, here we go. False
Are
fiction.
you welding?
Randy asked, one second, Brian.
This
Randy
one.
asked
Say
a
that.
very
Steel
good
erection.
question, just in case anyone else has.
Is he listening to all this?
Yeah, he's on the channel. So Randy asked a question about strip loads. 'Cause
Okay.
There's a delay in the video. The used strip loads have to be put in their own container.
Used?
And the
No.
answer is no, as long as all of them were shot. If one of them was a dud and it didn't go off, it's still considered live. It needs to be treated like it's live.
You can
But
just
if
pop
all
that
of
one out
them
of the
is
strip.
shot, they're all used, that's garbage. You can have a 4-foot mountain of those on your job site. You crawl around in like Scrooge McDuck.
So they can be on the floor?
They can be on the floor. That is inaccurate.
Yeah, if they
It's
can
not-
shot.
If they've all been shot, they can be on the floor.
housekeeping.
Or if there's a live shot, you can pop it out of the strip.
Get you for housekeeping then.
It's a safety policy.
But if you had one that was live and you threw it in our trash
Yeah, they're going to
dumpster,
Gary's
trash
tomorrow.
can, that's finable.
12,600. Okay, real quick, so the machine on the far left,
Okay,
is fall protection required? Is a harness required for that?
No.
Oh, damn it. There we go.
No.
Nope. What about the one in the middle?
Yes.
Yeah, and this one over there?
Yes.
Awesome. Alright.
It's gonna be back
I'll tell you what, you guys need to take a break. We're pushing. Pushing! Alright, hey, from the
But I'm
people.
already heard that.
Alright, so let's get through this quickly. Emergency action planning, okay? Let's go ahead and start handing these guys out real quick. These are going to stay with you on the job. They can stay in your truck. They don't necessarily have to be on you. More or less, they're sections out of the safety manual. Makes it real easy to find what you need in the event of an emergency. So attached to each one of the OSHA boards is the emergency action plan and the fire plan. Okay? It's every superintendent's responsibility to be familiar with these procedures. Both the emergency action plan and the fire plan have 6 steps. The emergency action plan steps are: assess the scene, diagnose the problem, dial 911, perform first aid if required, assist in transport, and document the incident. If you read it, it goes into great detail about what each step requires. But those are our 6 steps, and I just want to touch on those briefly. The 6 steps, I'll get to the packets in a second. The 6 steps that are required for the fire plan: identify that there is a fire and where it is, notify the people in the immediate area, maybe pull the fire alarm, make egress, report to the appointed rally point, establish accountability since you're the competent person in charge, and then document the incident. Okay, step 6 in both cases are the same: document the incident. The first thing that you need to do after a situation has subsided or kind of calmed down is write down everything that happened, okay? Your adrenaline's going to be going. You're going to be kind of sort of going a million miles an hour, and it'll be impossible to remember what happened 4 or 5 hours after the situation. So start writing down what happened. If you need to, say it into your telephone. Don't go videotaping everything. Just write it down what happened, or make a quick note, audible note for you to jog your memory so you can write it down. Like I said, you won't be able to remember everything in a few hours, so get it down as quickly as you can. The next step is to contact the safety director. That is myself. My phone number is 678-300-7202. It's programmed in your telephone before you get it. And then your project manager. Okay? After you've reached me and your project manager, begin filling out the appropriate paperwork. The packet I just handed you has everything in there that you could possibly need, and I'll walk you through it in the event of an emergency, how to fill out what. I suggest each of you look at it. It's pretty dummy proof. And just be familiar with it.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
So when the shit's going down, you go by and grab your sign-in sheet for accountability.
If it is available. If the OSHA board's on fire, that one's just gonna happen.
Burn, baby! Oops, my safety board burned.
Do not set it fire to
You
it.
might have to let that one go.
We need to start taking daily pictures of our permit boards so we can say we had it on site. Yeah.
All right, here we go. So the
You can
paperwork,
include that in your daily update.
does that answer your question? I mean, it's situation dependent.
Yeah.
If you can get it, definitely get it. If you can't, whatever, we'll roll with those punches as soon as we get them. So the paperwork that needs to get filled out is as follows, okay? And it's got to go in a pretty specific order, just because this is the sequence of events. Okay? A detailed recount of the incident from what's happened about an hour before the incident. So what was happening to build up to what happened, okay? Write all that down, so that way we can start to paint the picture for when the OSHA inspector shows up. If applicable, make sure you get those key witness statements, that's also in the packet, so that way they can write down what they saw, how they interpreted it. And it's important to get those because they too will have memories that fade as time progresses through this. It's kind of like the old fishing story, right? I caught a fish that was this big, and then the next day the fucker's 12 feet long. You know what I mean? There was a shark by the end of the week, so make sure you write this stuff down. Supervise the subcontractor's competent person filling out the subcontractor's report of accident. If you are having a hard time finding it inside the packet that's in front of you, you can find it in part 6 of the NOAA safety manual. Then you want to fill out the company report of accident. So you're going to get the subcontractor together, make sure he fills out his paperwork. Once you are satisfied with that, and I am satisfied with that, you will start to fill out your report. Meanwhile, I'm doing the same thing back here, getting it all together. So if there is any type of people there asking you questions, or the OSHA guy just so happens to show up, be polite, be courteous, be professional, give me a call and I'll get there as quickly as I can to address those questions. Since you're directly involved with the incident, you don't want to be divulging more information than you need to. Just collect the information and put it on paper. If the incident involves an automobile or a behavioral issue, the appropriate information is also in this packet. You can find it in part 6. And then, as always, no matter how severe or not severe, conduct training and retraining paperwork. So, let's go back. No, absolutely. Here you go.
Who's just covering the safety file?
Gotcha. It's the emergency action plan and the fire plan, which has been on your board for a year.
Got it.
Once you finished all the documenting, you went through this personally.
Yeah.
Once you finish documenting everything about the incident, you go ahead and submit it in a PDF to me at my email address, eric.fraser@novacamo.com. And then remember to call for assistance if you're having difficulty filling any of this stuff out. I know that a couple of guys in this room will tell you straight up that, yeah, this sounds pretty easy, but you're going to have a million things happening at one time pretty fast. And you're going to be in the hot seat. And trying to stay focused on getting all this shit done is going to be very difficult. So don't hesitate to call for some assistance, no matter how minor it is. And again, safety director, give me a call. If for some reason you can't pick me up, the next guy you call is at the front of the room. Give Scott a call. You should probably call him regardless. And then, after you've gotten in touch with me and or Scott, you want to call your project manager.
How come Megan didn't make the list?
She didn't survive the code. All right, any questions over emergency action planning? All right, here we go. How many steps are in the emergency action plan? Everybody.
6.
All right, here you are. How about the fire plan? Awesome. What's the sixth step in both plans? Document it. I like it. Less participation in the harder ones. And who are you going to contact in the event of an incident?
You, Scott, are both in
There
hard
it is.
body.
See, yep. Just start blowing up the interweb. All right, hey, so this is like the mandated 10-minute break. You guys want to push or you want to take a break?
Push.
Pushing. All right. We're gonna make this pretty quick. We're starting to wrap it up here. So we're gonna start getting into our peer discussions. Jason up here was inspected on May 19th, 2016 at Cumberland Center 2 by a gentleman named Raymond Scott who works for HB Next. The max penalties that were allotted to his job is $406,000, and that was in 2016 when the max fines were $7,000 per infraction. Nova accrued 3, Allied Electric 11, so on and so forth down the line. So you can see how this stacks up pretty quickly.
Right, and then don't forget.
61 infractions times 7,000.
Back up one more. Don't forget.
Which would be
OSHA
12.6 now.
ties together multi-employer. So we had Nova had 3 that we were responsible for. But they'll tie all 61 back onto us because we're the contracting agent. We're in charge. So just because we weren't responsible for all 61 infractions, OSHA will fine these guys. Well, Dunn Services is gonna get their 11 and we're gonna get our 61.
Now, that's based on if we didn't have documentations, but if we had documentation that we retrained Dunn Services
That is
for
correct.
one of those infractions or 11 of those infractions, then we're off the hook.
And that's the argument that you're gonna have in court with your lawyer, and you're still gonna spend tens of thousands of dollars trying to save hundreds. So that's the problem. So your documentation on site is not gonna keep you from getting fined. And the guy that comes out there on site does not give the fine. He's just a clerk, comes out, picks up all the information and takes it back to a guy in the OSHA office. You're gonna have to wait, right? Okay? And he issues the fines. One guy. It's not the guy that comes out and sees you, he's just a meter maid. So,
All right.
in the end, we're responsible.
Thank you, sir. So let's go ahead and just talk about this real fast, and then Jason's going to give his spiel. So Jason was conducting business as usual when a drywall crew rolled over a scaffold with a missing caster pin over an uncovered hole. The caster fell through the floor and into the ceiling into the office space below. The caster landed on a desk. And
It missed the desk, it didn't land on
It made the roof work. And it finished.
See how your memory isn't as clear?
No one, my bad, I gotta fix all my spelling errors. I look like an asshole. No one on the site where no one below was injured during this incident. The threat of a complaint to OSHA was pretty much imminent, so we had HB Next come out and conduct our first safety inspection. And then it kind of gets into what happened, and this is where I'm going to have Jason please stand up and kind of give
Real Jason Byrne,
Yeah.
please stand up.
Yep.
Stand up.
Give your account how you remember. Now this is important because this helps you prepare for when something like this happens to you, or you stay sitting. I don't care. Man.
Thank you.
But
I prefer that he stood.
and talk through talk through what happened real quick because these are all your notes. So go ahead.
Okay, on the day that it happened, we had some coring drill and we had placed full 5-gallon mud buckets over the hole. Scaffold guy decided to take his scaffold and push the bucket out of the way to put his scaffold where he wanted it, and the leg went down and the wheel didn't have a pin in it, so it went down through the ceiling below. At that time, I ended up running downstairs to make sure everything was fine down there, no one got hurt. Everything was fine down there. Ceiling tile was broke. Fixed that stuff, got it cleaned up, got out of there, and at that point called Alex, and then let the property management know of the incident. Because prior to that, a few weeks before that, we were doing. Yeah, before that, we did demoed the wall, and conduit was in the wall, and it was stuck in the ground. But the only thing that was holding it was the fire caulking. And over a little bit of time, it went straight through the floor and landed right next to a copier. So when this happened, that kind of set the whole thing off that, possibly they're going to call it because they were big on safety and all that stuff. Big So
Yeah.
they actually went around and did
Jan Huber.
inspections for the building, you know, telling them what they needed to fix for, you know, to keep everything up to code. So that's what originally happened there. And then with, when it happened, the drywall, guy who was operating the scaffold, he didn't even come tell anybody, he went on break. So he was sitting in another room, you know, taking his break, cause I walked over there and I see the scaffold top to the side, I'm like, what the hell? I look over there and it's gone, and he was like, I'm on break. So,
We'll deal with
He
this
didn't do
after
it.
lunch.
he didn't even do it, he didn't try to track nobody down to say what happened, nothing, he went on break. That's what's happening.
So, how are we preventing that moving forward?
Well, now, I mean, the whole, as soon as we get it done, we get the plywood and we attach that to the floor and then, you know, spray it with orange and red paint saying that it's a hole.
Right.
And what?
And what else are you doing?
What do you mean?
Inspecting what?
Scaffold. Yes.
Had the pin been in the wheel,
Yes.
had we been doing what we're doing now,
Yeah, it wouldn't have happened.
6-8 months ago,
None
it
of
would
this
have
would
never
have
happened.
Well, this is what really spurred us.
Yes. So you're welcome.
Thanks, Jason.
Well, hey, yeah, I mean, that's not, you know, overcast the importance of it,
No
Josh.
doubt.
Why don't we take a look at your incident real quick? Because on March 7th, 2017, at Glen Ridge Highlands 1, you had an inspection with myself, and you didn't accrue any penalties, but there was a pretty significant mishap that happened. So go ahead and tell us what happened real quick.
Sure. So we were working early mornings in an occupied space, extending some ceilings over, reworking in an area. Shortly after wrapping up, we're cleaning up to get out of there. There was a lady that had come in a little early that day, and the ceiling kind of came dislodged. The light fixture fell. The supporting wires caught it, so it didn't strike anything, but a couple tiles fell to the ground. She was pretty startled.
So what did you have up between the two phases?
I mean, we had basically a plastic wall.
So we were working on which side of the plastic wall?
This side, and it was on that side.
So what did we learn, or what went wrong?
Well, number one, you know, we learned that we need to inspect existing conditions before we start tying into them.
We're assuming everybody.
So what
did it
happened,
right
what,
before
it
us.
released because we didn't, it wasn't supported
Yeah,
correctly?
the grid wasn't fastened off to the wall angle, and it had shifted over just enough that over
How
time.
far away did that fail from where it happened?
I mean, the grid was right here. She was sitting about 4 foot away from it, so.
So we made the assumption that whoever built that did it correct.
Correct. So, don't assume anything.
There you go. Can't assume anything. There you go.
So I provided this picture up here on the right, gentlemen. Take a look. This is a rivet and a grid
In the country.
that we're using to ensure that the grid doesn't shift when you're working on light fixtures and all this other stuff.
So that's what was missing?
That's what was missing
That's
in
what
this
failed?
instance, and it could have ended
That's
very
what- that
poorly
happened
for
so
us.
easily, you know, but we just assumed that it's all fine.
All right, this one's really small, kind of difficult to read, but this essentially wraps up in Josh's words what happened, right? So it was a freak kind of
Did that
thing,
happen? I mean,
No-
these are all good things that these happen.
right? Nobody got hurt and no one was conducting work, but we were able to diagnose what happened through the implementation of our safety program, and by doing that, we're able to make these discoveries on the right and ensure it doesn't happen again. So take note of that. All right, real quick, let's
Well,
move on to our
also too, what saved us from our client?
the safety program.
What happened, what were we able to produce once this happened this was Yvette, wasn't it?
No, that
No.
Jason's was bad. This one was from Blake.
Okay,
and-
okay.
We
But
still
he
produced
still
an estimate
requested
report.
us to have,
We
what's
gave
our
them-
safety
we gave them
program,
this whole report.
give us your background.
Within
We had a
20
report within
24 hours.
24
In
hours.
his hand.
Yep, we had the report come up.
So
First
our-
thing that happened was Josh identified the issue. Okay, he assessed the scene. Then he took action, told everybody to stop, got everybody to a safe place so everyone that was in the occupied spot got away from that edge, that lead edge where stuff's falling out of the damn ceiling. Then he had the qualified electrician get up there to take a look at the light fixture to ensure that it was safe, and they both got up into the ceiling and inspected the situation. After they had inspected it, Josh gave me a call and I started jamming reports. tell me exactly what happened. He was getting blown up from me like crazy to find out exactly what happened, which is why it's important to document what happened leading up to this. So Josh is giving me all this recount. And at the same time, the electrician is shooting more cable into the ceiling and resecuring all the light fixtures and that whole working edge. After that, pick up where I'm leaving off here. What happens after you guys hung up that light again?
So we went back through the existing area and with the sheetrock or ceiling mechanic and the electricians and made sure everything was properly fastened. So we could avoid that. We also had the employee sitting in that area relocated.
And then when he concluded all the work to secure that site, I was able to produce a document for our client that explained what happened prior to the incident and how isolated it was and the actions that we took to ensure that it wouldn't happen again.
Even though it wasn't our responsibility to do all that, we didn't do it.
Tracking? Does that answer your question? Okay. And then lastly, we've got Tyler here, and Tyler is the
He's
first.
got the best one.
Tyler's best.
Last but definitely not
Tyler's
least.
our first no baloney OSHA inspection since the program got kicked off, and he was inspected December 19th, 2016 at 1000 Woodward Concourse Suite 350. The inspecting official was Frank Silva, OSHA compliance officer. No penalties were issued to us, but there were penalties issued, and there was significant physical damage and I'm sure emotional scarring to one of the individuals on that job. We'll break into that story in just a second. Nova got 0, LMI got 3, and 1 hospitalization. So, like I said, we'll break into that. But the reason Nova has 0 infractions is because this guy in the room right here did what he was supposed to do and followed through with his daily, weekly, and monthly inspections. And he ensured that he had all of the stuff, all the mountains and mountains of OSHA regulations up to date, current, and on his job.
Which had to be shown to whom when they walked on the job site.
The OSHA, Frank
Right.
Silva, the OSHA guy,
Right.
comes walking in.
I was
First thing he
standing
did
there
is
when
take
he got off
pictures.
the elevator. He got off the elevator and he does it just like they say they will. Hi, I'm Frank Silva with OSHA. Here are my credentials. He's got his hard hat on, safety vest, work boots, and all his paperwork in his briefcase. The first words out of his mouth, hi, I'm Frank Silva with OSHA. Here are my credentials. And we were standing right in front of the safety board. Great, how you doing, Scott Fraser? Nice to meet you. Glad to have you here to take a look at the incident that happened. Let me go ahead and run you through our orientation program and our safety board. Here's where you sign in. There's some pertinent information on here that's not really going to apply to you since you're a guest and you don't work for me. But in the event of an emergency, here is our exit plan. Here's how you get out of the floor. This diagram right here showing you how to get to the stairwell. It's right there. Where Rally points out the parking lot next to the dumpster. If you could go ahead and sign in for me saying that you were briefed on the egress paths of our space, even though he does not work for us and isn't required to do it. He's just a guest on the job site. We're the contracting agent. He's not working in any of the tiers below us. He's just a guy that's there. And we ran him through the safety program. He thought the board was so awesome. He snapped photos to take back to the shop and show people the way it's supposed to be done.
This has elevated us to a higher level here, much more professional than what they're used to seeing out there.
So all the pictures of our board and all of our paperwork went back to the area director. Look how Nova's doing it. His comments were, nobody else does it like this. He thought it was all bullshit. You guys put this together for me last night? Nope. This is on every job. Every job. Sure, would you like an address of when you could go visit to see another example? Everyone does it the same.
It really is quite helpful, and all you guys are to be commended for using it all, because it just elevates the company.
His attitude immediately went, okay, well, where are the electricians?
That's what we want to get.
The focus
And
the focus went away.
somewhere else.
The focus
He knew
went
we
away
had
from-
our shit
What
together.
was your role? Eric, in things like that, Eric is the big point guy immediately to meet with the OSHA people.
And that is a complete inspection
Yeah.
that he's out there to do. Someone didn't call in and say, hey, there's an unsafe environment, but that
Fire
inspection that
department
he's there to do, the
Well, two guys went to the
fire
hospital.
department called,
911
let's-
called OSHA.
Let's go to the story, cause this is another
And-
important.
Here we go, gents. I'm gonna paint up the picture of what happened, and then Tyler's gonna talk about what he was doing before, what happened during, and how he's fixing the issue and or fix the issue. So, LMI was installing a bus plug. It's a really big light socket, more or less. You know, like big fucking plug the building into putting a bus plug into the third floor of the building. The crew supervisor, Bobby Brown, became impatient and decided to install the bus plug himself without his PPE on, against Nova and LMI's company safety policy. Bobby's voltmeter arced and created a violent explosion inside of the electrical room. It's believed that the meter was set to ohms rather than volts. The explosion was so great that the ceiling tile were blown out of the ceiling down the hallway, about 20 feet on either side, two rooms over. 20, there we go. And then Bobby's complacency almost got himself killed and put 3 other lives at risk, to include Tyler's. Tyler's actions during the aftermath of this incident were above reproach. His response appeared to be rehearsed, and his implementation of the Nova Safety Program saved our company many penalties and fines. And I applaud you personally. You're doing a great job. So, tell me what was going on. Like you said, these are your notes, so go ahead and tell me what's happening. These are all photographs of the aftermath of the incident. So.
It was pretty substantial. Basically, just as Eric said, when we were installing the bus plug, every power was off. Put the plug in, wired up. You know, just going through the standard procedure. Had the one electrician and arc flash suit down in the main switchgear room.
Everybody know what an arc flash suit is?
Yeah, it looks like an astronaut suit.
Yeah, it's basically, I mean, it's basically like a mechanic's, coveralls, except it's made of a material that won't, catch fire, and then you have a separate hood and face shield that you put over. Once they re-energized the riser duct, is when, Bobby got a little impatient and was checking, he had just previously checked continuity on the bus plug, which is why his meter was set to ohms, which is why we believe that he just made the oversight of not putting his meter on the right setting, because he had just been checking the continuity between the bus plug and the riser duct prior to energizing the duct. Once he went to back in there with the energized duct, he opened up a port below the bus plug in order to check the phasing, make sure everything was reading right prior to turning the bus plug on, which is when he overloaded the meter, which created the arc flash, which in turn caused the explosion. As far as damage and whatnot that was created by this, it vaporized parts of the actual duct itself. I mean, the solid metal duct had holes in it, all up and down within a foot or two of the, you can see.
If you look at the bottom picture, second from the right, there's a little white hole
See
in there.
the daylight?
Click
There
the
should,
magnifying glass on the presentation, and then hold the cursor over that. It'll make that little section bigger on your slide.
No, it didn't.
Magnifying glass. It'll give you a zoom window.
Yeah.
There you go.
you shouldn't see daylight through that duct. The only holes you should see are those 3 towards the bottom.
He's talking about right here.
All of that metal right there was
all solid.
There are
was all
3
solid.
copper bars. They're about a ½ inch thick, about 2 inches deep, that run up and down. That carries all the power to the floors above, and it's completely blasted away. This is all steel, an eighth of an inch thick.
You can see the blow-by on the wall outlining his profile.
Yeah, I've got pictures of it where his shadow is burned on the wall when he evacuated.
All those ceiling tile on the top right one, that's a massive explosion,
Yeah,
fellas.
you can
That's,
see
that's
all
the
where
corridor outside the service
Very
elevator,
fortunate,
just
no one was
outside
killed.
the electrical room, 2
Very
rooms over.
fortunate.
Blew up ceiling tiles 2 rooms over.
So what was your role with the OSHA inspector there?
All right, so kind of like the emergency action plan says here. First thing he did, assess the scene. If you read this up here, Kind of hard to do when your friggin' eyeballs are blown out of your head, but good job for doing it anyway. So, after he gets everything under control, calls 911, gets everything handled, he calls me immediately and starts calling Scott and starts calling his project manager to get the reins pulled in on this emergency. So even though there's, you know, the proverbial bullets are flying, he's keeping his cool, making the appropriate calls. I start to get my report set for the OSHA inspector. In order for me to get my report set and submitted, you have to write down what happened prior to and what happened. I'm usually talking to you through the phone, writing it down for you. After I get your story on my computer or on paper, I'll start jamming and finishing my report. At the same time I'm doing that, you have to go find the subcontractors and get your key witness statements and start filling out your incident reports. It's in this packet. All this stuff is in here. Now all you gotta do is just go to your box, flip open to the right page, rip it out of this thing, and start filling it out. So when I show up an hour later, it's already in my hand, ready to get turned in. We got lucky, and Frank showed up the next day, but he was a little upset that no one called him sooner, because he would have showed up an hour after.
I was gonna say, what typically would you expect in those food?
They're gonna get there as fast as they can to try and catch you with your pants down.
Right. Now, there are two things to that.
Who didn't call, who was responsible for calling him?
He called us.
Yeah, the fire marshal called OSHA. Frank Silva called us back saying, hey,
I just got a phone call.
I'm coming.
What happened? I'll be there tomorrow morning. So, because we talked to him, that is the contact with OSHA. Because Bobby was admitted to the hospital, admitted means you're staying at the hospital, right? Because he was admitted to the hospital, you get 24 hours to call OSHA and tell them that something happened on your job site that required the admission to a hospital. If you were killed, we get 8 hours. If you went to the hospital and died at the hospital afterwards, then we'd have to call again and say, he just died at the hospital. You have to call and tell on yourself, and you only have 24 hours. If you don't, you're gonna get whacked for failure to report. The other thing too, Eric's talking about the emergency action plan. In this incident, we had 2 catastrophic emergencies at the same time. One involving personnel in OSHA, and one involving the hand grenade we just set off in the electrical room of the building. Both needed to be addressed. One to fix the problem with Bobby and get that situation handled, the other to turn the building back on, which took until lunchtime the next day, Monday, to get power restored to the building. This is the entire office building with no electricity because of what happened.
Saturday night, all day Sunday.
So that's why you've gotta get everybody involved, because it's not just the accident, there's also the incident that needs to be handled.
No delay, no delay.
When the OSHA guy called back and said I'll be there the next day, did that seem odd? I mean, if you got a guy that's injured and admitted to the hospital.
No, he wanted to know what the situation, what the scene was.
It was.
We're in the middle of cleaning it up. What's the situation with the electrical room? The electrical room is being dismantled to restore power to the building. We've taken pictures for you ahead of time.
We got that
Great.
call at 11:30 at night, and he said, I'll see you at 6 a.m. the next day.
What time did the accident happen?
Early
in the morning.
I can.
It was like 9 or 10
Like
o'clock in the
10,
morning.
10 a.m. I think.
So didn't the fire department call OSHA?
When we called 911, the fire department showed up, and the battalion chief was with the truck that showed up, and he said, but based on what had happened, because we had an injury on work-related injury on site, that he was required to call OSHA.
So he told you that right away.
He told me directly that he had called
When you call
OSHA.
911, they're gonna ask for your contact information. I don't know if anyone's ever called 911 before. The first thing you wanna know is who you're talking to, what's your phone number, so we can call you back if there's a problem.
So why was he upset that he wasn't contacted earlier? Who should have contacted him earlier?
Well, he said he would have come out that night, but the fire marshal called him, or however he wanted to do it. But he got there when he got there. I don't care when he got there. What I care more about is we were able to.
Want to care for the next time because we may not have.
Right.
Right. So the other thing too is
We may not have the hours that we had. Not that we had to put anything together because really you had.
didn't put anything
Luckily,
together.
we had this.
we had no hoops to jump through. Everything that we did was all
Other than a report and pictures.
But that's something we would do as part of the action plan.
I think that's one of the big benefits here that we should recognize. And based on what you said earlier, the inspector said, nobody else is doing this, I've never seen this before, we wanted to take photographs. Really showed him that we knew what we were doing. He met with Eric and went through the entire company safety program and was impressed enough to call last week and
Oh, yeah, so Frank and I are gonna go have beers next week.
you can't ask for
Ocean
that,
buddies.
where you have the ocean inspector calling saying, you guys really have this together, let's get together and have some beer and talk about it. That's
Right.
quite good.
Yeah, fucking dollars. All right, so just to kind of to close this up, we were able to get all of our paperwork together, and we really dodged the old proverbial bullet there. But the takeaway,
We were prepared.
right? The takeaway from this, Tyler, read your closing statements for me real quick, because that's kind of important that you can.
The biggest item that can be learned from this event is to understand your surroundings, to be able to assess the work and see what type of specialized training is required so that you can keep not only yourself but also others working in the area safe.
You know, this is life or death for
And-
this.
Yeah, what I mean specifically by that is when the electricians are in the room, in the in the electrical room, and they're working with the bus duct and whatnot. I've always known I've been trained that I don't. I stay out of that room. I'm not I'm not a trained electrician, so I stay out of that. But what should be, addressed and learned from this is moving past that is to understand, I guess, the range and area when something can go wrong. Because thankfully I was not, close enough to be seriously injured, but I walked up to not the doorway to the electrical room, but the next doorway down, to the service vestibule, which is 10, 15 feet away and around the corner, and I couldn't see the bus duct in my sight, and it still took all the hair off my arms, singed my face, and basically I got a bad sunburn in an instant.
I didn't even know what an arch suit was until this incident.
Right, and I think it'd be important for us to kind of talk about Bobby's injury, so people understand, who don't know what arc flashing is and the dangers behind it.
Bobby, when the arc flash happened, because he was not wearing his proper PPE, because he did not have his arc suit on.
And he was not electrocuted.
There was an
shocked.
explosion.
He was not shocked.
He was burnt.
He was burned.
You're burned. It's basically,
He was not.
instant fireball.
He did not conduct
Yeah, he didn't stick
electricity.
to it.
It just exploded in his face. He was not shocked.
Well, then you have shrapnel that flies with that
Correct.
as well.
He was strictly arc flashed. He was,
How
he did not-
how much would the suit and face cover have helped?
What he was working on, if you look on the panel, there's a little white sticker with a red line around it, and it's got a square with, it looks like an explosion. That's it says danger arc
Arc
flash.
flash.
And it tells you what PPE you have to wear to work on that safely. What he was touching is a no PPE environment. So he could have had the arc flash suit on, and it would have kept him from getting burnt, but what he was touching, there is no PPE to prevent you from being killed. When it's energy.
Basically, when there were two electricians in the electrical room when the arc flash happened. One of them had his arc flash suit on, except for his face mask.
Yeah, Bobby took the meter away from him, and he went, fine. And hooked the helmet and face. He had the face mask on. He took the helmet and
Had it
shield
in his
off.
hand.
Fine, man, you do it. And it exploded. So he got a red.
Burn on his
He
eye.
got no burns on
outline.
him except for around his eyes, because when you had your hood on, you have, just like a ski mask or something, where all you can see is your eyes. So he had,
The gnarliest sunburn you've
first
ever seen.
and
On his
very
fucking eyeballs.
slight second degree burns around his eyes.
Plus on your eyeballs.
Where Bobby had second and third degree burns from basically his elbows down to his hands. He had skin grafts on both his hands and forearms, and the only reason his face wasn't as severe as his hands and arms is because he had a big mountain man beard.
And he wears
Which was
glasses.
gone afterwards.
Yeah.
Yes,
And he
yeah.
wears glasses. The
Yeah.
only reason he didn't burn through his eyelids and ruin his eyes is he wears glasses.
So
And this caused a emotional roller coaster friendly. The next time you saw Tyler, 3 months afterwards, with me, he broke down when Tyler walked out of the room.
He spent
It
3
just-
months,
no
he spent a month
He
in the
had- he had
hospital and 3 months
emotional
recovery.
Problem
So-
when Tyler walked in.
Thanks a
Him,
lot.
him and Tyler, him and Tyler walked off by themselves, but half an
Now,
hour.
my question is this, how would you prevent that? How would any of us who don't know, I know about as much about that bus duct as I do,
The prevention is,
you know, operating on somebody. How would you
not
prevent it?
I mean, it's more.
For us to prevent something like that, we did by contracting LMI, who provides arc flash training to their employees. That guy's been trained on how to do the job. He neglected to do it appropriately, and he almost got himself killed and our guy. So that's on them and their company. We understand that we're not electricians. We're not going to know specifically what PPE to use, but it's our responsibility to ensure that the electrical company we're contracting does know what they're doing and that they train their guys. So if they're a certified electrician and high voltage with a certificate, they'll say, you know.
So should we, before we would ever do that again, should we sit down with that foreman or whomever and say, okay, what is our, what, how are you prepared to go in there and do this? What PPE are you using? What are your guidelines? Are you a competent person? I mean, should we be asking those questions?
That goes into the training, retraining section of both our company and their company and our policies. So what's happening for Bobby right now is Bobby is not allowed to do any work on a NOVA job until LMI calls me and says, hey, he has completed his punitive measures. Meaning, there's no deduction in pay or job. They feel that him being blown the fuck up is payment enough. Hey, you make a mistake, you learn it the hard way. Play stupid games, you win stupid fucking prizes. Okay? So that's payment there. For him to go work for them some more, he has to go around and teach each person in their company arc flash training. And as soon as he's done that, they're going to contact me and say he's completed his punitive measures and he satisfies our company's safety policy to return to work. So as far as we go, we don't have to retrain him. I'm just waiting for LMI to say he's all done.
And then as far as OSHA is concerned, OSHA, because these guys have been trained that they need to be wearing an arc flash suit in these environments, and they weren't, one would think that that is them not wanting to wear it, right? You could say, well, that employee has been taught. He knows better to do that. That's him doing it on his own. That's not my responsibility. Correct? That makes sense. Because Bobby is a senior member of the staff there, responsible for training, and responsible for all the employees, they're being hit with negligence. Negligence on his part. Negligence on the part of him to not enforce PPE use on the other employees in the room.
Four people in a room, 4 counts, $80,000 a piece
of negligence. So not only they're going to court, but they're gonna end up hiring lawyers and going to court with OSHA to negotiate that down for some sort of penalty. And they'll probably end up working out that, yeah, you're right, they should have known better, that was on them to not be wearing their PPE. They're still gonna end up getting whacked for Bobby because he's an officer of the company, and that's negligence. So it's huge, put your ass out of business fines. And if he'd have done that and one of the people in there had been killed, he'd be charged with manslaughter. It's not just OSHA. As soon as OSHA's done with you, you're gonna go to court. So if OSHA doesn't put you out of business, Bobby's family's gonna put you out of business, and you're gonna go to jail when the DA levies manslaughter. It's real shit.
So that whole big sobering experience in this one particular instance, you know, puts a lot of that. Let's back up real quick. Let's go ahead and take Tyler out of the microscope. And I want to remind everybody that we are part of the same team. And this one is probably the heaviest slide that I have in here, but it's important that we share it. One team, one fight, right? Team assessment. Each and every one of those is a job, an inspection that I've conducted on your job. Tim, you got lucky. Randy, you've been working nights, you weirdo. and he didn't have anything going on. Jerk. But anyway, so you can see, as I've gone from job to job, and as the program has developed and gotten better and better, we go from real heavy fines, and a lot of those are those fucking shot strips, down to like 0s, 2s, and 1s. It was
135, Tyler, Jesus.
there's a lot of shots.
There's a box of shots that was open.
Is that what I done?
So, with a total of 589 counts against us, there's a max fine on the board, little over, just shy of $7.5 million, right? So everyone kind of sees how quickly this stuff stacks up, right? And like I said, that's just a real sobering slide, and that kind of sort of ends off my big old discussion here, the learning stuff, the synchronization of what we're doing. This is, again, another break. I'm going to go ahead and push because we're running a little late. But lastly, right now, we're going to jump into our administration and logistics. So up on the board, we've got everybody that works for Nova that kind of sort of has a real big hand in turning the big cogs here on the office side. So, you know, the people behind the telephone in here have some things that they would like to pass on to you. So, Alex, you over there? There you go. Go ahead and add your points in there real quick, please, sir.
Before you paint an open plenum ceiling, watch all subcontractors and tenant vendors closely to make sure they don't run additional wiring after the plenum is painted. This causes us to go back and either repaint or have them rerun wiring, which costs time and money. This particular instance is on the fire alarm devices. And the ceiling, and then a nice, beautiful white ceiling, and a bright red wire strung right across. Open
You
plenum.
can't paint that way.
Some jurisdictions you can. Or you have to relocate. How do we solve that?
Alpharetta didn't have a problem with it. I mean, I ran 90% of it in the, in the areas where it was, closed up.
Hard conduit.
If it's in a pipe, it's not red.
Anything else to add? All right. Thank you, sir.
Daily updates.
Mike, you're up.
This is probably another, this is carried on, I think we need to do something else.
So, you don't want to say anything?
Well, I just don't know that, we've been here a long time, this has been great, and this has been important. This stuff is all some things that, another meeting, we need to get together more and go over just what's going right, what's going wrong on our jobs, but this was concentrating on what this guy here has done for our company, which I wanna commend you for what you've done this last year has been unbelievable. You've done what we've been trying to do for 20 years, dude. This is excellent. You guys are learning from him, and you're doing a fantastic job.
I appreciate that. Tyler, thank you for validating.
What did you kick off your career?
Yeah, his salary was paid for this year.
Eric makes a really good point, if that had happened a year ago,
we
wouldn't be sitting in this conference room.
That $7.5 million, gentlemen, puts us out of business. That would be, because we could probably get that down
to
3 or 4 million. That puts us out of business. We don't have $3 or $4 million to give to OSHA because we don't follow a safety program. This is important. This isn't bullshit. Competency is important for you guys to take what he's doing seriously. If you don't, we don't have a place here. We're not gonna take this lightly. This is very important. You junior guys, you need to learn it. You need to understand it. It's a lot to learn. You're not gonna learn this tomorrow. What we said when we got started with this program, it's gonna take us a year to 18 months to get this implemented, to get everybody up on speed, to get everybody educated. And it's probably gonna take that because you rattle off numbers, it's unbelievable. I don't know how you could study this every night and not know what you know. So it's gotta be a constant thing that you're training these guys, you guys are wanting to learn, and that you guys are implementing it out on site. That's the most important thing. If you don't take what we're doing here now seriously, then go work for Choate or anybody else. And I say that seriously. We're done if we get fined by OSHA. That's how serious this shit is. So I'm not ready to go retire yet. So let's you know, we're doing a great job. I don't put any sour to it. You're doing a great job educating, and you guys, from everything I'm getting reports back, in that last column, go back to that one where you show all the fines.
Now, these reports that Eric
That-
generates, they get
That
distributed.
tells me right there that
It's money well
you
spent.
guys are taking this shit seriously. And thank you for doing it, because that's important. And we gotta get better, and we gotta get more knowledgeable, and you gotta get out and educate more, because I think that's the way you learn it. Right. You got out on site, you're gonna learn it. Thank you.
Of course.
And knowing how to find the information. The book is huge. If you haven't sat down and read some of this OSHA book, take it home with you.
Well,
read a couple passages on things that apply to NOVA. Learning how it's written and how it's structured is important, because OSHA says you have to know everything in the book, which is an impossible order.
Yeah,
but
but
knowing
you know,
how to
a
knowing
lot of
how
that
to use
doesn't even comply to us.
But I agree. But knowing how to use the book is equally as important.
Have you guys thought about maybe like tagging our OSHA book with what the major? And actually, you've got it.
So-
This is a great form right here that these guys could duplicate and understand. Hey, these are the things that we get hit with every day. You guys should know what those the
So there are 3 documents that are produced right now. You just received 2 of them. The big fat Bible 1926 that y'all got has got everything you could possibly need to be compliant. All the bullshit that we use on the regular is condensed down into the safety manual, which is in the box. I've had that for a year. If you haven't read it, it's 2 good shits. Okay? You can read the whole thing cover to cover in 2 good shits.
Well,
I
reading
guarantee
is one thing. Understanding and being able to dictate the number and its section to these guys in the field, the subcontractors. That's
what-
going to hold a lot of
I
weight.
would like
That's what
to
this is.
propose that schedule.
That's good.
That schedule for the guys that are on the webcam. This schedule right here, the one that shows when stuff happens, that get added to our safety board.
Yep.
So that it's easy to reference. It's right there. Subcontractors can reference it themselves.
This document right here streamlines the inspection
Yeah.
process,
So
which
let's-
validates the program.
Let's add that to our board.
That goes on the board, and then this right here is for everyone's ease, and just if there's a no shit mass casualty problem, all the document that you need to do, all the documentation you need to do to keep you from going to jail because someone died on your job, or closing the doors up here forever because we're $5 million in fines, or what have you, it's right here. This is your get out of jail free card, or get out of jail significantly less expensive card. So just you look over it, and just know where it is.
And that's in the Nova Safety Manual. That's in the Nova Safety box on the job site. And then for OSHA, if you don't have this on your phone yet, add this app to your telephone. It's called Mobile Regs. That's the name of the app. REGS. That is the entire OSHA manual. Looks just like this on your phone. A little green chevron with a white plus in it. And it is the OSHA books. It is all of 1911 or 1910, excuse me, general industry, and 1926 construction. There are 2 other ones. There's 1904 and 1903. 1903 is how they're going to fine you. And 1904 is how you need to keep up with your records, your record keeping. We don't need those 2 sections for reference. This is a great reference tool. The best part about it, if you want to know about ladders, you can type in the search for ladders, and everywhere a ladder is addressed in the OSHA book will be condensed and right at your fingertips. If you want to know how someone's supposed to use a specific tool, this will bring up every single instance that a ladder is mentioned in the OSHA book, or whatever you want to know about. Lifting cables, slings, harnesses, scaffolds. This is an easier tool to use than the OSHA book, because the OSHA book combines by reference many different subparts. It's very difficult to use and find everything. This is a great way to get all that information in a specific request.
Is Rick out there?
And it's free.
No? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and wrap it up here. Are there any questions on anything that we've covered today? I'm going to open the floor up for any questions. Anybody got?
There's got one small.
You still alive back there, bud?
No.
Awesome. So.
He's got me smiling.
No, he was overwritten. Okay, cool.
Yes,
So-
popcorn Sutton.
Real quick, we talked about the safety, staying compliant, the emergency action plan, record keeping, project management, and then we wrapped it up with administration and logistical planning. That concludes our synchronization meeting, gentlemen. I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah, just for like housekeeping with the stilts. These guys sometimes like they'll just tell them not to throw mud on the floor because like slick wet mud on concrete count as like a bad housekeeping.
So pick it up and put it on their pants.
But if I watch a guy do it, do I need to make him refill a training thing?
Dude, I do the same thing with recruits that shit in the toilet and don't flush. I tell them to pick it up, put it in their pocket.
Awesome.
Put it on their pants. I get that off the floor.
Wouldn't you love to be one of Eric's recruits? Randy and Brian, thank you very much for joining. Have a great night, guys. Appreciate it.
Just document it.
Yeah, just document it. And give them some bleach spray.
Hey, real quick, if you didn't sign in, the sign-in sheet's over here. Please sign in.
Yeah. And Randy and Brian, don't worry about signing in. We know you're here. I got you a lot.